fast, life moving in slow-mo. I'm a god, but I actually don't know. I mean, better put your pride aside. I'm a Benz, get more like a Volvo. Your best stuff looks like my words. Synapses, fire, and burst. Got the whole crew with me, about to do damage. You know we ain't average. I ain't gonna say this again, but it's in my time. Better look in my eyes. I'm a genius in the skies with my heart on my sleeve. You can force to oblige to a king in his prime. Everybody got a line. Sit back with the stars in line. I finesse like my life on the nine. Was a diamond in the rough, and now I shine.
No one could stop us, they'll try, but they won't. Nada nos puede parar. Oh no, we're wide awake now. Our eyes are wide open. We're running this world. We're keeping it turning. We're living like giants. Yeah, giants. We're bigger than giants. We're giants. Oh, sleeping giants. Sleeping giants. Yeah, shutting it down. Been in the ground and my people all up in this place. Spinning this thing, go to my rank. Royalty up in my veins. I'm loco, think I'm so cold. I say stunting, ain't no going back. Now they ask where Kiki's at. I'm like, you can't hang with that. 쏟아져 빛이 멀게 된 눈이 멈추지 않아. Once we go, 내게 넣은 날로 모든 뼈 빨리 달려. 넌 못 따라와. True damage we do it. True damage 보여줄게. 뭐든 쉽게. 이기든 지든 my crew make the beat. No one could stop us. They'll try, but they won't. Nada nos puede parar. Oh no, we're wide awake now. Our eyes are wide open. We're running this world. We're keeping it turning. We're living like giants. Yeah, giants. We're bigger than giants. We're giants. Cause not the way we're weak, but we coming right back. This time you're gonna see how we do it like that. We're living like giants. Yeah, giants. We're bigger than giants. We're giants. Oh, sleeping giants. Sleeping giants.
I keep on shattering time. I might just leave you behind. Homie, you stuck on rewind. You should quit sleeping on mine. You got your back on recline. When I damage your delicate spine, please don't act out, shy and surprise. They be like, what you mean? What is your winning scheme? I got a giant team. Biggest my self-esteem. Run it back, man. They think they go hard, I'm like, come again. You run out of time and I'm busting in. While you stumbling, I got this blade in my hand for your punishment.
We're wide awake now. Our eyes are wide open. We're running this world. We're keeping it turning. We're living like giants. Yeah, giants. We're bigger than giants. We're giants. It's not the way we're weak, but we coming right back. This time you're gonna see how we do it like that. We're living like giants. Yeah, giants. We're bigger than giants. We're giants. Oh, sleeping giants. Sleeping giants.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Risen Esports Champions League. The competition is hot as some of the most time-tested veterans in North American Amateur do battle in today's matchup of Polar Ace versus Wildcard Gaming. My name is Eric Desrex Beltran, followed by my co-caster, it is Dean, Rebel Fox, Merrick, and Rebel. You've seen the names in this roster. I think we have an exciting match ahead of us.
More than enough. I think maybe an understatement to say exciting between these two. You get all the names between these two, especially as we've seen them across the scouting grounds. You know there's going to be some electric in the air between these teams tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, to get onto the backstory of some of these teams, talking about Polar Ace, they were a legendary team. I remember back when I started casting, they were the dynasty. They owned North American Amateur for quite some time, and then they just decided to drop their team. And now they're back in North American Amateur. They've been back for a while, but they haven't been able to pull out that same success, that same dynasty that they had in the years before.
I think the players that they've got on the roster at this moment are players that were kind of on the brink of breaking into the scouting ground-like sector, and they're looking to get them to the next level by playing them together for an extended period of time. I know Dragoon was around the scene for a very long time. He's an exceptionally talented top laner. T-Ax is an insanely good ADC. I'm super happy to see him. I know Command Attack on Illinois College has been a beast for years, and I'm happy to see him in something competitive like this. And of course, Joey is a game that I think a lot of people that have been around the Academy, the Challenger Series, seen his build, they recognize him from his days on CLG.
Yeah, and that's what makes this matchup so exciting right here, because, I mean, Dragon, Min, Kim, Spawn, even Julian as well, you know, very, very big names. Julian, of course, Maryland University plays on that squad as well, so this is bound to be hot.
I will. I'm excited to see just the kind of hotly contested matchups between the two. I'm really interested because every single one of the players across most roles don't really particularly share champion pools. Obviously, there's stuff that's meta that a lot of these players are going to be opting for, but in terms of the personal play, the personal development on certain champions in their pool, they aren't looking at the same things. We're going to see different matchups just about every game, and I think that's going to lead not only to a little bit more targeted banning during the laning phase. You got to get rid of some of the powerful stuff. Varus, Syndra are going to be on the board for red side, but that targeted banning is going to be in full effect once we get past some of those champions that need to be taken away.
Yeah, and speaking of targeted banning, it's time to get into the champion pools a little bit. One of the pools I did want to talk about is Dragonman Kim specifically, because he's someone who can absolutely blow you away with some of the most aggressive jungling in the amateur scene. The old school Nidalee Sin type playstyle, just aggro, aggro, aggro.
I see him as a player that's really self-sufficient in terms of a team composition. He's not somebody that's going to break out and be like this massive frontline engage or this huge damage source behind everybody else. But when you put him on somebody like Lee Sin, like Nidalee, as you said, even onto things like the Elise or the Graves, he's going to generate his own momentum in the course of the game. He's not somebody that needs constant lane pressure. You don't need perfect information all the time. He's a guy that can generate his own kind of momentum through the game, get his own things going, and make games happen. As you said on the Lee Sin, I've seen him multiple times make those massive kicks that just change the effects of team fights. So I expect them to give him these champions so that he can be self-sufficient. Give a little bit more pressure to your lanes so that they can actually command and utilize this self-sufficient jungler to get out on the map, to make plays, and to get an advantage early.
And how do you think that compares to someone like Shorter Ace? Because Shorter Ace does have a playstyle that's a little bit more reflective of has some of these same things going on within it as Dragonman Kim with the Lee Sin and with the more aggro champions, but we do see a bit more diversity coming from him, where he does like to take a little bit more of the utility, say the Gragas, for example.
Yeah, you could see him on things like Gragas or Jarvan if you want to see him on team fighting things. I know he plays a mean Talia. That's a really good damage supplementation for your team. Has some pretty good ganks as well. The Kindred might be in the wheelhouse as well. All powerful champions. He seems like a lot more wide-ranging of a character. I wouldn't say that his Nidalee, his Lee Sin, and that individual kind of play style is developed nearly as much as DMK, but certainly Shorter Ace has a much wider variety of play style to go for, which I think is what's playing in his favor here. They don't know what he's going to opt for, and having that smorgasbord of champions to go to, it makes it hard to plan for in the drafting phase.
Yeah, so the bans coming out so far: Zoe Trundle on the side of Wildcard, Polar Ace looking to take away the Nocturne and Yuumi. 2 more bans to go. First pick will be to Wildcard, and a lot of focus going on towards that jungle pool, both the Graves and Nocturne being taken away, but also that focus on the Varus being banned out. First pick coming up for Wildcard.
Syndra is available here for Wildcard if they want to grab it in the mid lane. I'm not sure if it's something that Wildcard just doesn't play very often, or if Polar Ace isn't afraid of it, or if they have something they want to grab for themselves here that they've left up so far. The Graves is really common to see. The Varus, of course, very common. And Yuumi is a much more targeted ban towards the side of Wildcard here. Joey plays that very well. And I'm not shocked to see this first overall. This has been a very consistent red side ban alongside the Varus, and letting it slip through. They got to have a response for it here. Zoe's been taken away. That usually has a kind of mixed results anyway in the laning phase up against Syndra. So do you go something stall tactic like Quirky, or do you play something aggressive to try to control the map?
Now 13 seconds remain on the timer. Looks like they want to go with the aggression as they do go for the lock-in on the set.
And Flares plays a pretty nice set champion. Now, of course, the question is now, with this Kalista having been locked in, that's a very powerful immediate bot lane, especially when the ultimates start coming through. The Kalista can throw set in, so there's a flexibility there between the support role and the top lane coming in from the side of Polar Ace. And of course, it's Julian out of the mid lane. He had to have some practice on the solo lane champion back when set was pretty much meta in every single position. So you have to think maybe this is still in his wheelhouse.
Yeah, so locked over on the side of Wildcard. They are going to choose to go for the Tristana right here, able to match that ADC, take that off the map. No more will that role be focused on, but one more pick going over to Wildcard. And they have been able to get quite a bit of damage on their side, and a lot of late game scaling damage as well.
I'd like to see something supportive here. I don't think Morgana is actually that bad of a pick right now for the side of Wildcard if they want to go for it. They're going to get Ornn instead, really good team fighting. The Tristana interests me because it's a TX special, something he likes to play more than anybody else at the moment. And the reason why is because there's so many of these champions that kind of just sit in lane, scale up. You think of things like the Aphelios, the Ezreal. The Tristana does a very similar thing that has much better disengage and self-sufficiency in that rocket jump. And even into the likes of the set in Kalista lane, it's not going to be super easy to get onto Tristana without a little bit bit more supplementation from the jungle, or just really bad mistakes coming through from the side of Wildcard on the Tristana. I don't expect that to happen. Echo coming through for Polar Ace is a good one.
Echo getting locked in to round out their first phase of the draft, and you can kind of see where they're going both ways. Polar Ace, you do get a little bit more of that late game power, especially having that set being able to back you up in the bottom lane if they choose to go for that. While Wildcard, they have a bit of team fight going on. There's a lot of catch they can do when you have that Syndra, when you have that Ornn.
At Polar Ace, they went for a very powerful kind of blind pick bottom lane here with the combination of the Kalista and the set. And then they go for the counter matchup in the mid lane with the Echo into Syndra. They can still flex it to the jungle if necessary. I don't know that that's particularly in the wheelhouse of somebody like DMK. It is a self-sufficient champion like we were talking about earlier. But certainly this is kind of the tried and true matchup against Syndra we've seen time and time and time again over the years, just because of the ultimate being so synergistic and countering the Syndra ultimate. So potentially something we could look at, and there's a little bit of flexibility, but I expect the Echo to go mid lane to try to counter the Syndra. This is an Olaf ban also that came through from Polar Ace alongside Rexo, so more pressure put down towards that jungle role.
Yeah, jungle getting banned out quite a bit here. Thresh getting banned away. One more ban before we head into that second phase. It's going to be interesting to see where those priorities are, because now neither side has really gone too deep for a jungle. You do have some flexibility that you can take with these.
Mm-hmm.
So one more ban to come out. It's going to be Tarek.
They're pitching the support pool, I think, to force this the set down into the bottom lane, because now there's nothing really left to pick here. Lee Sin's going to get locked in. That locks Echo into the mid lane. I wouldn't be shocked to see something like Sylas. It gives you a decent frontliner. It's been the counter matchup to Ornn pretty consistently. And, you're stealing really good ultimates here. You've got the Tristana ultimate. You've got Ornn ultimate. And there's still two to come. The Syndra ultimate's not phenomenal. Nautilus is another really good one to have in your back pocket. I don't love the Nautilus in this set because it's relatively low range. You can get punished early by the Kalista because of the early laning prowess of those two. But later in the game, it does do quite a few good things. That pickoff and the frontline potential from a Nautilus is rather strong.
Yeah, and of course the way it works with the team fights as well, if they do get towards that stage of the game, it's going to be absolutely nasty. Mm-hmm. Counter pick will be over to Polar Ace. One more pick for Wildcard Gaming. To round this one off, what will it be?
Jungler. Wow.
Skarner.
All right, yeah, they're going to go for Skarner here. It's not something I see super commonly, so must just be a shorter ace special here coming into the counter matchup. I would have expected something with a lot more damage with an Ornn and a Nautilus sitting on your team already. You have good CC and good frontline, so seeing the Skarner, they're really relying on TX and, of course, Biosi in the mid lane, doing quite a bit of work on this one. Again, the Sylas I don't think would be a terrible pick here into the likes of the Ornn, but it doesn't give them a perfect frontline. Ooh, they get to go direct counter, never mind.
Just straight up grab the lane bully, Renekton being locked in over the side of Polar Ace, and I mean, it really fits the theme here because Polar Ace is just saying fight with this composition.
100%. Yeah, you got divers in the Lee Sin and the Echo, the Renekton able to move through a lot of your team. Kalista's able to throw set in. When they want to pull the trigger, they can pull the trigger with just about any one of their champions, which is really big. I think another important aspect is post level 6, especially for the top side of the map, it's near impossible to gank the likes of the Renekton or the Echo if they're not just soaking damage constantly from their lane opponent. And yeah, the Ornn and the Syndra can do that, but as long as, again, the Echo has the ultimate up, Renekton has the ultimate up, Skarner can't really touch the map. This opens up DMK to play a lot more aggressively in the 1v1 matchup up against shorter Ace. I think that's something we're going to see, him hunting down this Scorpion constantly over the course of the entire map.
And that's going to be hell to have to deal with because Lee Sin, early game, he does have that pressure. He does have that early game damage, that early game power. And that could really affect those carries that you have with the Syndra and with the Tristana. If they can't get going, if they really can't get their damage, that's pretty much it for Wildcard.
Yeah, and well, I would say the Syndra should be fine in the mid lane up against the Echo. It's a melee matchup, and Echo can win that in certain circumstances, especially with the right all-in or back timing to get itemization advantage. The Syndra should be perfectly fine out of the mid lane. The real worry for me, again, is the Tristana Nautilus bottom lane. The set Kalista is so oppressive early on. Once they hit that level 6 mark, they need very little to pull the trigger, and there's so little trading back as long as the champions are relatively near each other. Set gets good CC. The fantastic shield on that Haymaker just makes him near unkillable for anybody, and all the damage loaded into Kalista alongside the Rend and the passive on the W with set means that the Nautilus, even with Aftershock, just is not safe in that laning phase, which means if DMK gets aggressive against the Skarner and these lanes go as they should, Polar Ace should have some control on the bottom side of the map.
I think overall, the entirety of the map with the way these champions work, I mean, they're not R dependent whatsoever, and they have so much stick. If you get caught out whatsoever, I mean, with the Skarner, you were talking about it earlier, the counter jungling will be absolutely miserable. If there's any lane priority coming out of Polar Ace, it will be difficult to get out of that mid game.
It will. And even better for Polar is they snowball really well with all their champions. Echo, if he gets ahead in the mid lane, gets a couple kills against the Syndra, that's not a champion that just sits there or split pushes the rest of the game. This is somebody who can get around the map, abuse the jungler, abuse any of the other two side lanes, go take control of the jungle alongside the Lee Sin. The mobility between those two is ridiculous. The safety of those two is ridiculous. So how are you supposed to counteract that kind of jungling, that kind of pressure you have? The only person I would say that wouldn't just purely take over this game entirely is the Renekton. It's a little hard to get into the backline with the Tristana ultimate, with the Syndra E, and with the Skarner ultimate in your way, but still certainly having the top lane pressure coming in here from the Renekton means that the Dragoon doesn't just get to sit there and scale up for the late game. There's some pressure applied to the map, and that kind of puts a fire under Shorter Ace to find somebody to work around early.
And that leads to the question, where will Wildcard start to play their cards in this early game? Because it's definitely going to be a difficult one. I mean, the Syndra Echo matchup, you were talking about it earlier, you do got something that tends to go a little bit neutral there. Is that where you really start to want to push? Where are you going to be able to find your objectives? Where are you going to get some control of the map?
I think at minimum, the Skarner, if he's able to put some pressure mid lane, especially early on, this is where maybe the Trundle would be really nice. And Echo isn't the most susceptible to the early Trundle pillar, but the Skarner can do similar things as long as the stun can come through after the E tags, but it's a little harder against the Echo. But even just a couple of waves pushed here, a bad back timing taken there, Syndra should have control of the laning games even past the level 6 because of the range and the wave clear advantage she should kind of pertain or persist throughout the game. I would say if I were sitting on the Skarner right now, I'd actually look at bot lane. I think what Skarner adds to the 3-on-3 versus the likes of the Lee Sin, if that ends up being the case, it's actually a lot greater than what Lee Sin brings. And yeah, the Kalista set in the pure 2-on-2 probably wins. I think the Skarner Nautilus Tristana, especially at the level 6 for Skarner, really becomes problematic for the Kalista and the set and the Lee Sin to try to deal with.
Yeah, and I could definitely see that going through. I really, at the end of the day, I mean, with Wildcard's comp, I don't hate it, but I feel like if they just had one more champion that provided damage, this would be much more safer to go through with.
It would. Like, Skarner has quite a bit of CC. You're able to do quite a bit. I wouldn't actually be shocked to even potentially see like a Warrior Skarner or something that does supply a little bit more damage. As inefficient or as not popular as we see it be, I would like to see a little bit more of the damage supplementation, especially if he has to go toe-to-toe with the Lee Sin. If you're in that zone as Skarner with the Warrior up against the Lee Sin, you have a fighting chance up against it. If you're playing the Cinderhulk variant without much armor yet, you still are at risk very heavily of DMK just punishing constantly. So, and Skarner can really capitalize on a lot of the long-range CC, the Syndra ultimate, the Nautilus ultimate, the Ornn ultimate. If Skarner gets rolling, gets inside of that ultimate when the CC comes through onto the likes of the Kalista, the Lee Sin, or the Echo, you can burst somebody out really heavily, chain CC with your ultimate, and do quite a bit of work. I would love to see that from Shorter Ace. I don't expect it, though, so the damage is probably going to have to come from command attack and TX.
We could hope it, though. We could definitely hope it.
can.
And the other thing that is at least a little bit of a silver lining, even if you do have a failing lane over in the top, if top diff is able to get some sort of advantage and take down the Ornn, and even if you start to punish the Skarner quite a bit, you will always have that kit. You will always have that crowd control. So there will always be a threat when it comes to these 5-on-5 fights over any objective, really. And you just got to make sure that Tristana and Syndra stay safe. That's the big thing.
Yeah, you get to the point where the Syndra, the Tristana start to get damaged. You get to the point where Ornn starts upgrading items. Skarner and Nautilus get a little bit tankier. You have a really, really good 5-on-5. A lot of CC, a lot of individual lockdown from the Skarner and the Nautilus that can come through for a lot of people that like to dive and don't really scale immaculately into the late game. Renekton doesn't. Lee Sin's damage does not. Set's damage does not. Echo's is pretty good if he's got quite a bit of itemization, especially into squishy targets. And Kalista's falls off because of the loss of AD on those auto attacks. So after a while, the damage will be much higher from the side of Wildcard. It's just getting there. I think that's problematic. And again, I task that to Shorter Ace. Shorter Ace, find a lane to play around so you can have some skirmish, some early presence on the map. If you've got that going, you can at least keep them away from winning and snowballing the entire map before the game even comes close to your clutches.
Yeah, so that is draft right there. Wildcard Gaming, Polar Ace, locking in for game number 1 of the day in Risen Esports Champions League. We are going to throw it over to short break. When we'll return, we'll get into this matchup of Wildcard Gaming versus Polar Ace. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Risen Esports Champions League Wildcard Gaming versus Polar Ace. Starting off on game number 1 right here. On the blue side, we have a team that's more team fight oriented. If they can get to that late game stage, it's going to be monstrous. And on the red side, Polar Ace looking for just that mid game aggro and pressure throughout this game.
Hoping that's going to be the case for them, because I do like the excitement that a team like this brings, with Kalista throwing a set in the middle of a team and then an echo and matching with dive. Like you can just imagine how fearful you'd have to be for command attack and TX if they have to be tove all the time by these champions. I'm even more a little bit concerned here. Command attack goes heal. I don't love heal versus like the barrier in this case. The barrier does quite a bit of just individual target blocking, whereas the heal is, it's got like the immune like movement speed to it, which is nice to have in certain situations. But I think for pure damage mitification, the barrier would have been better. And you have to be afraid again of the Lee Sin, the Echo just bursting you out if they get ahead.
A little bit of shenanigans over in the river, just trying to deny that Skarner relic, and it's exactly what they'll do. But nothing too big loss right here as we start with pretty standard starts.
Ping that gold, baby. Look at that. 45 gold advantage right now from just those Skarner pillars on the side of Polar Ace here. Gotta love that one early on.
Starting blue side, over on the blue buff, Dragonman Kim. Of course, that might mean his attention will go towards that top side. Be able to get a little bit of aggro over there. And, I mean, that's what we're to be expecting for a little bit. But what we weren't kind of expecting was... Actually, never mind. We were expecting that. I completely forget that's the TX special, but heading over towards the mid lane this time.
Yeah, so right now what I'm seeing from the combination of DMK and Shorter Ace is going for a full clear where he starts with red, goes to blue, then he's going to have enhanced auto attacks for the beginning of his clear during the solo target camps and the cooldown reduction for the later stages. This allows him to stay a little bit healthier when he gets to the back half of his clear where he's going to need it against multi-target camps. Now, DMK's gone an interesting path. He clears his entire blue side, goes to red. This late red means his health isn't going to be as high, but it does mean that he can actually get aggressive and he can play into either of the solo lanes, because now this red buff's going to enhance his damage. It's also possible that he's looking to catch out the Skarner here with this red buff, and any red buff Lee Sin, as long as he's got the attack speed from those abilities, is going to be really good. As you made mention, also, TX coming into the mid lane, a much better matchup, I would say, than the Syndra would have up against the Echo, because the Echo can hard engage, and against the Tristana, she can just rocket jump away, so it's a little easier. You got to get quite a bit of damage on the Echo to make sure you can just burst out a Tristana the way you would normally do.
You can see the pings coming out of the map, trying to track where Dragonman Kim could be, and almost on the money right there, pinging out both the red buff and the Raptor camp, but it means they're both going to meet each other over at this scuttle, and jungler on jungler able to get the stun from Shorter Ace, ward hop over the wall, Dragonman Kim.
Case. Again, Dragonman Kim, he has lower health to work with right now because he took the red buff so late, which I think was his biggest problem. Wasn't able to get the scuttle. Oh, actually, did he steal that scuttle crab? Wait, no, it wasn't up yet. I was trying to figure out what had happened there. He got a gank up towards the top side. Shorter Ace looking to pinch in top, but he's got good damage.
Ooh, almost able to get the kill. He will get first blood. Top div. Able to score the 1v1 right in time. Shorter Ace doesn't make it.
Minions OP giving over that kill to top div on that one. Flares is going to be happy that he gets that one secured for himself. Again, he did have the damage, but that last minion auto was what was going to secure it for him, so great job there. Also evading the gank as well from the Skarner, not able to take him in the 1v1 even with the lower health bar on the Renekton. Really well played from Flares on that one.
Gonna add to that early pressure as well. Top diff on that Renekton. You know how much of a lane bully he can be. He is the OG lane bully. The map comes out, starting to focus on the bot side. Shorter Ace starting to ping down to try and get that gank.
He is, but again, already back to his lane oppressive ways. His top diff just bouncing in, immediately getting harassment onto Dragoon, who now has no summoner spells to work with, and the flash still available here for Flares on this Renekton in the top side. I know Bialcy cannot be feeling good about the way his lane is going at the moment, because this Tristana is just insufferable to deal with early for any melee champion. Here's the rocket jump.
Ooh, rocket jump in, able to get all the autos, and good chunk of health going through right there. That Tristana is a pest.
Youch. That's the only thing you need to say when it comes to damage early on. That the rocket jump combined with that, with the satchel charge, or the explosive charge, my apologies, is just too much damage. Again, this is why Tristana's risen to priority in some of the solo lanes. The amount of individual damage you can put out early on, just really, really high, and it's making the Echo's life very difficult. Didn't go for the solo kill, thankfully. Tristana's also running the heal, so not able to get the teleport back to laning phase. This would have been a decent opportunity with the double back at the mid and bottom lane to take the aggressiveness into the Dragon. They're a little bit late onto this play, and they're going to try to get ward pressure, but they're not going to be able to. And in fact, with this better back timing from the Tristana and the Syndra and Nautilus on the bottom side, they should have control of the river. They're the ones that can now go for the Dragon because it's kind of the pathing of DMK, not putting him in the right position to contest for the Dragon.
See, they're headed around that area right now. They got to start clearing out some of the wards, but instead, over the wall, gonna pop out Shorter Ace. Trying to clear out what he can, grab that Skarner rune, and get ready to fight. And position advantage will go over towards Wildcard Gaming, as you had mentioned earlier.
Only benefit here is that you do have the TP potentially available for the Renekton that can join them in the fight. But again, the river control completely going the way of the side of Wildcard because of the fact that those back timers had come through much earlier and there was no response coming through. Here's the flash over.
Over the wall to Hero, looking to go after Joey. Gets a good amount of damage in, but Scatter the Weak will find the stun. The good slow goes in. This team fight is continuing. Over the wall comes TX as well, able to rocket jump in. Still trying to grab the kill. It's going to be Shorter Ace who grabs the first one of this fight, but jumping in, top diff will be able to assist and grab a kill over to Spawn, setting this over to be a 1-for-1 exchange.
Thankfully, do get that 1-for-1 trade because of the teleport in from Flares on the top side of the map. But again, all of this could have happened a lot sooner. They could have been the ones taking the advantage in the river, and instead, they give that up after the back timing had come through. They actually burn a ton of Summoner Souls. You get to flash the exhaust from Joey, you get the flash and the heal from TX, and you had no Summoners under gun to start with, and only the flash remaining on command attack is a lot of pressure you can now put in the middle of the map. I want to see DMK, once this ultimate comes up, get a chance. Nice hook.
Comes in with the hook, finds the dredge line. A lot of damage on the Spawn. 2 Hero will be able to show up to protect his partner. And no kill will go over, but that threat is absolutely massive once you get caught.
You see the hook land onto Spawn and immediately the damage, actually the jump in onto CTX. Abusing the melee match, it feels really bad. Here's DMK, flash in!
Ooh, nice from 2 Hero, but one able to get too much more. Now Shorter Ace is looking to join this fight, but minion wave a little bit too big, not worth going for this engage.
Still no ultimate available onto the Lee Sin quite yet, so can't make that happen. No ward hop to happen, and Flash is not available either, so really no aggression to be had all the while. But Flash in, really aggressive here from Julian. We've seen him go, I've actually seen it, so earlier in the fight around the Dragon, he also made a very aggressive face breaker in to try to start a fight when maybe there wasn't one to be had. Feels like maybe he's got to pull off the throttle a little bit until that level 6 is had. Once the level 6 is had, he and Spawn can take the pure 2-on-2 matchup, but until that point, maybe just pull back a little bit on the aggression. You see the rotation of Spawn and Julian to the top side. They might be looking for the Rift Herald, or at least the fight around the Rift Herald. If they hit the level 6 mark, I think they can control that neutral objective.
It's definitely going to be tough with TX here as well, who's been able to just secure and put a death grip on this lane priority over in the mid lane. And you see right there, Busio has been having a hard time, especially under his tower even, as he's just been bullied time and time again. And you can see the reaction coming out of Wildcard Gaming. They are going over towards that Rift Herald.
Yeah, they have the Callisto on the top side, so that's a really good securing tool for the Rift Herald as well. But as you said, TX's control of this mid lane means the Echo is not going to be anywhere near. So in all honesty, it should end up being a 3-on-3 with Joey here.
Yeah, here comes the team fight. Julian knocked up TX, jumps right in and grabs the kill. Makes it look easy. Wildcard Gaming, they're going to have priority over Shelly.
Echo nowhere to be found either because, again, just gets pushed in by TX constantly. He can't even take a step out of his own laning phase because of the pressure that Tristana is exerting at the moment, and that gives them river priority. This has been gorgeous, just macro play and little bit of individual back timings coming through from the side of Wildcard. I didn't expect to see this level of attention to these kind of smaller, finer details in the game coming through, but they're doing a fantastic job of it, using the first back timers to secure the Dragon, and then, of course, using this pressure of the Tristana to equalize the pressure in the river because there was no roam from Echo and no teleport coming in from the Renekton.
Yeah, TX in this mid lane has been pretty much the answer to anything Polar Ace has really been trying to send, because it's negated this comp so early, and now it's just looking so good for Wildcard Gaming in a position of the game where Polar Ace should be starting to find their footing.
You do still have the Renekton that's very strong. I think part of the intention behind some of these picks is that eventually you could look to switch the Tristana into the likes of the Renekton lane, because you can push off the Renekton, especially a Blade of the Rune King is the first itemization choice. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case, so they're going to continue to just give best lane priority to TX. On the opposite side, you still have a very powerful Renekton to work around. The Ornn is not quite at the place where the armor is high enough to actually just straight up counter top diff. So if you're Dragon Min Kim, again, try to play around the strength of your bottom lane. This engage is very hard. You still have a lot of damage on the Kalista, or play around the Renekton. At the moment, UCOC, probably not going to have much of an impact. You could use him to clear mid lane and join the Lee Sin, but you're not going to get anything accomplished there.
Now roaming over towards this bottom side river. It's going to be a little bit before this dragon spawns. 35 seconds on the timer. Will be a mountain, and already control being established by Wildcard Gaming. They are putting a pretty big emphasis on these neutrals.
Doing a good job of making sure they have the lane pressure for it as well. Again, TX has no issues there, so the complete control on the bottom side of the map. They're actually throwing Ornn onto the strong side of the map where they're attempting to play towards, and then roaming their bottom lane, because you don't really want to be in the pure 2v2 if you're the Syndra and the Nautilus. They've taken a little bit of a CS hit for it, and of course the kill going over to Kalista gives a small amount of gold lead, about 300 gold lead over the opposition. But Command, Attack, and Joey will take that all day if it means that they continue to control the neutral objectives on the map. They don't have to worry about getting pressured by the combination of the Kalista set, which is a super strong duo, and they're controlling the map for the most part. It's like a double whammy of strength coming through from this team, not allowing these lanes to play out the way that they should be expected to.
And now Mountain Drake being picked up by Wildcard Gaming, and we are going to see an Infernal map this time. So the pressure is going to be on for Polar Ace to try and respond, because it's getting closer and closer towards that soul point. Now going for the dive right now, able to pull in with the Impale onto Busio. Is able to use the Chrono Break, gets knocked up by the ultimate push back, but is alive. Will be able to survive. A lot of resources used to try and grab that kill. They still will be able to pick up this tower
easily. The Rift Herald's going to be able to knock that one down on its own, and then Set is actually in the mid lane to take that, and nobody is sticking around to make sure that they can get the charge onto the second tower. It's just going to get the one play and be gone. Really well played, though, from UCOC, just being able to get himself out of this situation. Started off really rough. The dive from the Skarner and the Nautilus combination, they tanked the turret really well. There wasn't quite enough damage from TX to just pump out and to kill the Echo before he was able to walk himself out of the situation. Kind of the worst part about that, but they're still able to pressure him off, get that mid tower, and now you can throw Tristana in a side lane or continue to throw it in the mid lane, shove that up super far, and it buys a lot of space for shorter Ace or any roaming potential that would come through from Nautilus to actually work a lot better, at least push back the warding from the side of Polar Ace here.
trying to do right now. Polar Ace grabbing some of these control wards, trying to get their own footing into the game, because look at Wildcard Gaming. They have their wards pretty deep into the jungle of Polar Ace right now.
Making sure they have the information of where DMK could strike at any given moment. It hasn't been very loud on this this earlier game jungler. You would assume then the likes of the Skarner. It's not that the Lee Sin particularly wins every single possible 1v1, 2v2, anything like that. The Skarner CC is invaluable, but you'd think a little more aggression coming through from the Lee Sin might have been on the cards here for the side of DMK, but they've been tracking him so well with this warding that you alluded to just a second ago.
A little bit of a fight going on at the top, trying to set up a cheeky play over on the bot side. Joey's not going to take it, and we'll be able to clear our wards all in the meanwhile, but that was a lot of that was a pretty big time commitment out of Dragon Min Kim to try and stay down there for that long and soak up a little bit of that EXP, take it away from his duo lane, and actually got to hold that thought. A gank going on in the mid lane, not going to find success. BuCOC has somehow been able to survive every single attack that Wildcard's been throwing at him.
Gotta appreciate at least that UCOC on the Echo is not folding whatsoever to the pressure being applied to him. That's a couple of times that the Skarner has attempted to get behind him and utilize the ultimate as best as possible. Did get his flash, but will be a little bit more cautious about stepping that far up. I thought maybe the punishment would come through from Skarner on the top side of the map. The red buff and the entire red side is available here from DMK, and if Shorter Haze has gotten his hands on that, you would have put this Lee Sin in a really, really rough place where he's going to be struggling for the next little while, especially with no red buff to gank with. But fortunately, the Echo being able to survive that pressure meant that there was no outnumber on the top side of the map, so you can appreciate that at least. Rift Herald 2 is going to be spawning here in just a minute, and again, the Ornn is on that top side. You're seeing TX continue to push out the mid lane, especially with that mid tower. I wouldn't be shocked to see a push lane come in here from the likes of Command, Attack, and Joey to make sure, once again, they could be the first ones to that objective.
Right now, BuCOC able to get some lane priority of his own off the recall earlier from TX, and you can see right now, Polar Ace, they do want to establish their own vision. They do want to finally stop bleeding these objectives, stop forfeiting them over to Wildcard, because there's only so much more you can give before Wildcard finally get towards that late game phase.
And look who's already moving. You've got commanded attack. They're going to be there first in the mid lane for the potential skirmish that's being generated here. TX on BCOC.
Yeah, able to grab BCOC, but there comes the chrono break. Still able to jump out in time. Will not find the resonating strike. Does the Dragon's Rage to knock back command attack, but the fight is now on top. Div trying to hold on to this as the dredge line goes out. And now the depth charge as well. Still trying to find a kill. None seen either way, but there is another hook going on. Dragonman able to hop away and survive. No kills on either side.
You can appreciate right now that Polar Ace is not giving anything up whatsoever. It's not DMK going down. It's not BUCOC going down. Despite all the resources being thrown at them, is actually going to force a back out from the side of Wildcard, which is quite nice. But there is no pressure being applied to the map for a team that doesn't have the superior team fight. And the Callista is not really getting enough in the side lane for the most part to justify this level of like kind of a lack of attention to the rest of the map that they've been giving up so far. If the Callista had picked up bottom tower, I'd say it would be worth it. Now sitting on that, 28 CS lead, something along those lines with the Blade of the Rune King finish. This could be the point they're looking for. I want to see the hard engage in the 5-on-5 to allow for DMK and BUCOC and Top Diff to get into the back line of the fight. I want Spawn to be there for this Rift Herald or this Dragon, whatever is on the cards here from the side of Polar Ace.
And now Wildcard with the slightly earlier back timing will get control over this Dragon area, at least vision control for the time being, but you can tell Polar Ace are going to be a little bit more vigilant of it this time, and you can't really blame them. If they concede this next Infernal, the next is going to be that Dragon Soul, but they're able to throw out Sonic Wave. Resonating Strike goes through, trying to catch out Shorter Ace as Joey jumps in. Use the depth charge. No kills going out just yet. TX flashing away. The chase is on to TX. He's able to back up in time. Joey has to go golden to negate some of this damage, but you can see Polar Ace are starting to find their footing in this matchup. BUCOC will chase down one Spawn. Will find the double kill, and this is going to be a Drake going over to Polar Ace.
No TP used from Dragoon in this last fight. Top Diff burns his, and then the aggression was just a little bit faster there from the side of Polar Ace to take it to Wildcard as they look to get around the Dragon. TX is strong, but he's not at this level where he can just 1v3, 1v4 quite yet on the Tristana. Only has the BF Sword and the Zeal completed in his inventory with the triple Doran's Blade, and because of that, the damage output isn't there to bring down the likes of the Lee Sin or the Echo this early. Love the way that they played that. Brought everyone, as you said, started putting resources into the Dragon, into the neutral objective, and that's a big win for the side of Polar Ace. They now actually have control of the top side of the map because of the kill onto Shorter Ace and the tower take on the bottom side to pretty freely get this Rift Herald as well. This is potentially where the snowball begins. They were patient, they waited for their opportunity. It looks like they finally found it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful situation for Polar Ace. They're starting to come online. We're starting to get those mid-game spikes that we've been waiting for. Overall, in the early game, the gold stayed even for quite some time, and that would be to the benefit of Wildcard if it wasn't for that last fight where Polar Ace are just starting to turn on.
The fear, again, in my eyes, though, from the side of Polar Ace is you still have this massively ticking time bomb in the arena that is this Tristana, who's currently sitting on, I think, the second most gold in the game, right behind the Renekton. And yeah, again, the Renekton falls off after a little bit of time, so you have to be afraid of the fact that Tristana, when she gets online, can probably straight up win those 1v3s, those 2v3s, 3v3s, whatever it might be, around the neutral objectives. It's actually not Polar Ace that has control of the river. They didn't even get vision there. I'm shocked because they had complete pressure of the top side of the map and the middle of the map to work with, and they got nothing for their troubles.
It's gonna sting right here, but now Polar Ace starting to reply, getting a little bit of damage on Joey. You're not gonna find too much in this situation. What you could possibly find is over on the top side where that turret is now falling. Saying this 1-2 in favor of Polar Ace when it comes to turrets.
Getting a little bit of gold lead, getting a little bit of map pressure back is the side of Polar Ace. Can appreciate that. The Callista is also looking rather strong. Again, this is a composition that works a lot better earlier into the game. I think around the likes of the Baron, the next few Dragons, things of that sort, they should be looking to try to force 5-on-5s because this is the point where they're going to be winning them, or at least the most capable of winning them definitively. This is where they have to generate some income for themselves, or else risk the scaling of the Tristana and the Cinder coming back to bite them. This is also an opportunity for Shorter Ace, now that the lanes are a little bit more extended, to find some pickoffs a little deeper. UCOC hasn't been susceptible to one, so maybe look for Spawn, look for Julian, look for the likes of Top Dip in the side lane, and see if you can get something to stick.
I mean, Spawn's been kind of going under the radar as this game goes through. 3-0-0, has that 300 gold bounty on him, does have the CS lead over his lane opponent, which was command attack in this situation.
Was. Yeah, command attack on this Syndra has just not had the progress in the game that I think that they were expecting him to. Has the GLP completed? 141 CS is nothing to scoff at. That's 7 per minute at this point in the game, but it's not exactly where you want the Syndra to be. Into the likes of the Kalista in the set, they played so heavily to the map that they gave up quite a bit of the laning pressure, and you're starting to feel the effects of that with multiple items now being completed for the Kalista and only the one being completed for your Syndra at this point. So the Syndra's going to take a little while longer to get online in the same way that the Kalista is, which again leads to the fact that it should be Polar Ace generating some fights, looking for some 5-on-5s, because right now the only massive threat they've got on their team in terms of damage is TX. If you find him, the team fight's won.
Yeah, now so we're starting to see that split push come out. Top Diff and BoostOC over on those side lanes pushing forward, but teleports will not be available. Meanwhile, Dragoon does have his teleport if a fight were to break out. We know he helped that over the last fight. So that is a resource if they can use it. It's just a matter of, can you really use it when you have Top Diff in your face?
You have the issue of Top Diff being in your face, which I think is a big thing. The other thing is you don't take the Baron very fast. Tristana does quite a bit of damage, but nobody else really does all that much damage. And now, looks like Flair's getting aggressive into Dragoon.
Right in his face he is. His Top Diff just autoing away onto Dragoon, making him pay for getting too far out from his turret.
He is. And mid lane, I mean, we see both teams attempting to play some ARAM here, trying to get some pressure to push back the opposition to look for the Baron and the Dragon Vision. Dragon Vision owned very heavily from the side of Polar Ace here, and I don't think they, like, there's no punishment that can come through onto the Baron. They're not going to fall for that trick. Joey, oh.
Joey going a little bit far there, but now still looking to go after 2 Hero. Instead, we'll put the depth charge over on the spot as the Dragon's Rage does go out. Able to find TX by himself, trying to get that damage to Joey. Starting to go low as the Call of the Forge God has been summoned. It will only find the knock-up on the Dragon Min Chem as the autos are trying to ring through from spawn. Left unchecked, but the health bars are low for Polar Ace. Dragoon, so many spears in his back. Spawn is autoing away. Still putting him in, able to rend it, but will not take down Dragoon. BoostOC, however, will. Top Diff now diving forward, wants to find the rest of Wildcard, and that is what he'll get, taking down Shorter Ace as well. A crazy team fight so far, 2 for 2, and we're looking for more blood to hit the floor. Instead, it's just gonna go dead even. TX trying to find his way away from the Gator, doesn't want to get caught out, and he will be able to escape, but what an insane fight, Rebel.
Yeah, the push now in the mid lane for Spawn is going to allow him to walk down towards the Dragon. I think the most important part of this entire fight, again, TX is the point you're playing around if you're on the side of Wildcard. He jumped in immediately to punish Spawn, and a fantastic ultimate here from Julian made sure that the aggression not only didn't get there, but that they could turn onto TX. It forced him completely out of the fight and bought so much time. You saw the number of spears that got thrown into Dragoon with no damage return onto the likes of Spawn. That's the ideal fight coming through here from the side of Polar Ace. If you get the Dragon off the back of it, I think it ended up a 2 for 2, so not massive advantage here, but they know how to play the composition now. Force TX out of the fight, there's no real threat remaining on the team.
And Spawn just unchecked. I mean, you said it. Oh my goodness. He was just autoing. No complete punish whatsoever to come out of Wildcard. That's what's going to have to change right there, but it can be pretty tricky to be able to catch and hold down a Kalista.
Especially since, like, when you're talking about CC from a long distance, you have quite a bit of it with Syndra, with Nautilus, with the Ornn as well. Now TX actually.
COC trying to find the catch, and now it's looking pretty bad for him as the teleport goes through. Top Diff will show up, but it's gonna be a 3-on-2. Top Diff running really low, but now the cavalry has arrived. BoostOC will take down Joey. The RKO will come out and lock down Shorter Ace. There's nowhere for him to go. He's so far away from his teammates, and he will fall. Wildcard in a rough spot now. Out comes Call of the Forge God, and a shutdown will be found. Dragoon taking down Spawn.
Yeah, I think Command Attack was able to get quite a bit of trait damage down onto Spawn during the course of this last fight, and then the follow-up from Dragoon afterwards, and now DMK!
Oh, double knock-up! TX with the Goomba, stop running through, finds the double kill on top of it, and now he wants the Croc as well. TX goes forward, wants to find the autos into the bush, able to deny a lot of that vision, but the teleport will come through from BoostOC. Shows up. It's going to be a 2-on-2 this time. Will not find the knockup, diving for that backline, but what do you know? Command Attack still waiting in the wings, delivering another kill over towards Wildcard.
I don't think the ult was quite up for BoostOC. The TP to try to defend the Renekton was at least, yeah, kind of brave in his mind, but might have been a bit dumb with that cooldown left. And this isn't going to be a fast Baron, so there might be competition for it, but without the jungler up, DMK is a while out, so could be easy to take here for TX so long as the damage is there, and Shorter Ace is around to make sure that this one should go over.
5,000 health remains. Dragonman Kim getting closer and closer. 3,000 health remains. This should be all secure to Wildcard. Dragonman's gonna flash forward! He's gonna steal the Baron! Dragonman Kim with the smite steal! It will cost him his life as well as Busio C, but it's definitely worth it in this case if you're able to prolong those engagements. You don't want to lose top diff though. You don't want to lose more than you need to, and Wildcard are going to be able to get a 3-kill advantage in that fight, but the Baron still legendary from Dragonman Kim.
Flashed forth just the Q on its own, didn't even flash into the pit. He flashed to land the Q to make sure he could get into the pit and get the execution down with the smite onto that Baron. Really, really well played there from DMK, and yet they get very, very heavily punished, if not slaughtered, on the back end of that fight. But at minimum, you have some pressure across the map with the Callista in the set. I don't think UCOC ended up with it. Yeah, he doesn't have the Baron himself, but this frees up quite a bit of space for your team to work with. Love that one. The push in the mid and the bottom lane should be your main focus as well, because the Dragon in 2 minutes comes up. That would put you at soul point, in 3 Infernal Drakes for a team with as much damage as Polar Ace is huge.
This is looking pretty good for Polar Ace as they are able to find solace. They are able to find reprieve in this game. Every time Wildcard looks like they have an advantage, Polar Ace are able to sneak something away. You see it with those double Infernals. You saw it with that Baron. Can they continue this momentum and push through this mid-game area?
My fear right now for the side of Polar Ace has been the same one that I've had all game. TX, surprisingly, is playing Trundle right now because he right now is judge, jury, and executioner. 6 kills, 3 assists, Infinity Edge upgraded, double Zeal itemization, Vampire likely getting into the Guardian Angel and the Bloodthirster. That Tristana is going to be able to 1v5 very quickly in this game, and there's not much that you can do. The Echo's starting to get damage to look for the burst. The Phantom Dancer is going to counteract that, so you've got to get damage from a couple of sources onto Tristana, otherwise she's going to run rampant.
Now setting up to siege in the mid lane. Joey, we all didn't catch that. Don't worry, don't worry. As the siege continues, Polar Ace are just going to look to back out, but look at Busio C over on the sidelines trying to set up a potential dive over here.
For something. Again, they have interior pressure of the river. They don't have much vision set up outside of this one ward. They're looking kind of for a surprise attack from the likes of the Renekton and the Lee Sin, but I'm not sure they're going to get it perfectly. Here's Busio C. They're going to force it.
Looking to try and go for it. Will grab the shield. Will not be able to silence anyone. Busio C. Force use the Chrono Break to be able to get out of there, but top tip is now caught by the Impale. Hero too far forward. A triple knockup to come out of Dragoon, and they're just cleaning house right now. Polar Ace completely on the run. The Buster Shot will only help the retreat of Polar Ace, but Wildcard Gaming still able to secure the kill, still able to get wins, and you're seeing the power of TX. You're seeing the power of this team fight comp.
Really impatient here from the side of Polar Ace. They were looking for the fight. They tried to bait it out. Busiosi ends up actually punishing heavily the entirety of his team because the Nautilus throws the ultimate onto him. That's Joey throwing that Nautilus ultimate onto the Echo when he ults backwards, and it ends up tagging Renekton. It prevents him from getting into the front line and opens up an avenue of auto attacks and damage to spill onto the likes of Spawn. Also, Julian got aggressive into the backline unnecessarily, had no health bar to work with, and doesn't have the damage to punish the likes of the Syndra, and especially not the likes of the Tristana whatsoever. And so because of that, you didn't really have a front line for the fight either. It was very, very messy from Polar Ace. Felt like maybe they had to force something to go for the Dragon, but they had river priority. They could have gotten vision, looked for the right engagement, or at least waited for the right time to strike. Instead, losing that patience, it was Busiosi getting a little too aggressive and costing this game.
And Rebel, this Tristana is a thing of nightmares now. Like, look, 7-0-3. You were talking about the items earlier. It's only gonna get worse from here. It's gonna be harder to kill. We still got the stopwatch for protection as well, so good luck being able to take him down, especially with this front line.
Okay, now this is something interesting that I don't think I've ever seen before, but this is a very unique way of playing this game. So if you're looking at the side of Polar Ace right now, what are they lacking in terms of damage profile? They don't lose a lot of magic damage. Busiosi is their only threat, and Echo doesn't have the most in terms of consistent DPS, let alone, like, the burst is high because he's fast, but not quite as high as most. He's never really going to be able to bring down a tank. So you look at Dragoon's inventory right now, he doesn't have one Sunfire that's been upgraded. He's got 2 Sunfires that's been upgraded right now because he knows that the armor is the much more important stat in this one, not to mention all the health. We see a fight on the bottom side.
Oh, TX going hard right there, trying to take down top diff. Top diff will be able to survive. It did cost him his dominance though, but now BoostOC looking to go in here. It's going to be an uneven exchange, trying to take advantage of TX, Joey, and Dragoon being alone, but the bouncy house come through. TX grabs one. 2 hero looking to go in, but the autos are ringing true from TX, and he'll be able to find a double 3-for-0 wild card on the map.
Problematic right now for Polar Ace, I think that they're finding, and this was an occurrence in the drafting phase, despite all of the ability-based mobility that's in this team between BoostOC, between DMK, even in the Renekton or the Kalista Ultimate, things of that sort, you have to still land those or be very decisive with your kind of fights and everything going around. Otherwise, you're going to struggle getting onto the likes of TX. Again, you have good disengage tools, and outside of that mobility, this is 4 melee champions trying to get onto Tristana with plenty of frontline around her, and that's what I think this game is falling to, is they have not been definitive, they haven't been decisive, and haven't been able to find the angles necessary to get onto Tristana consistently, and that's costing them the ability to win fights, because that's just Tristana bearing down on your team.
And that is a bot lane inhibitor going down at one of the worst possible times. 7 seconds left on that Baron timer. Super minions are going to start running through that lane. What can Polar Ace really do here? Who can you really commit without giving up too much? We know that Dragonman Kim is pretty much a smite god, but if you give up lives on a smite fight, that could be the end of the game right there.
What I want to see at the moment, I think this is the best opportunity for them, that Siege Minion is not going to reach the base for at least the next 45 seconds to 2 minutes, depending on how well the rest of the waves are there or if anybody pushes it. And so because of that, I don't want to see Spawn down here responding to the first cannon wave. I want to see her over, or I want to see Spawn over at the Baron pit, looking to pressure for it. You have the Blade of the Rune King alongside that Rage Blade, and then you have quite a bit of other damage from the remainder of your team. Instead, they're just getting pushed out here because we don't have their Kalista.
Oh, here comes the Engage, looking for 2 hero, also looking for top diff. 2 hero having to flash over the wall to be able to survive, but the rocket jump coming out of TX. Gonna look for the chase, the fight continuing over in this red side jungle. The unleashed power comes through as Boostio is able to join, but gets knocked up once again as the Call of the Forge God will run right through the middle. Boostio C having to back off. 2 heroes still trying to find the Engage, will find a double knock up off his Dragon's Rage. Still forward, Boostio C will grab one, but TX is able to get one. The health bar is so high for TX right now, and he smells blood in the water as he Goomba stomps everyone he sees in front of him, grabbing that double kill. This should be the game right here.
You're talking about Goomba stomping. He's got the star on him right now. He's running through anybody he wants. He's not taking damage. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you kill on the side of Wildcard right now if it's not TX, because he's the one doing most of the damage. Yeah, command attacks got a lot of the CC, a lot of the front line is there. You're able to get some done with the side of Wildcard, but TX is the only person that matters for the most part in the fights, and he's going untouched. He was sitting in between 3 separate kind of approaches on the side of Polar Ace, and none of them could collapse fast enough to make that play work. It was really unfortunate because Spawn looked like he was on a roll, ready to get into the fight. One good knockup from Dragoon was all that it took to make sure that that was going to come through. Now, Infernal Soul is going to go in freely up Wildcard, and if you thought this Tristana was already scary, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Infernal Soul locked down. Wildcard in a beautiful spot, and look at that, even the Baron is free for them. They're taking all the treasures of the Rift right now before they close this one out, and there's not a damn thing Polar Ace can do to respond to the power of TX.
Not at all. You would have potentially had a chance earlier in the game. I think the lane swap was gorgeous from the side of Wildcard to make sure they got an advantageous matchup, but it felt like TX was basically on an island all game, and if you're on a Tristana, you're going to take that all day because you will eventually win the game, and you're seeing that earlier on. We saw some instances where the team fighting wasn't quite there, the damage wasn't quite there to just take everything on your own. But in this last fight, I mean, TX pretty much just 1v4'd at the end of the game when everybody was low health, and they had to scatter because there's no response to it whatsoever. At this point, if you don't kill TX, you lose a team fight. You gotta find the engagement, you gotta get DMK or BoostOC there to get some CC, get some burst damage onto her, because outside of that, I think TX just wins this game for the side of Wildcard.
That's what TX is trying to do right now. Now having the Guardian Angel
full build,
caution absolutely thrown to the wind. This is a terrifying ADC to have to deal with. Dragonman Kim looking to try and possibly set up that hero steal that we saw before, but it's going to be too far too late. Too much defense coming out of Wildcard Gaming. They will be able to secure the dragon. They have the Infernal Soul. They have all the tools to close this out however they see fit on whatever whim they want.
They do. The Barons are taken out. DMK is dead.
Oh, he's so good.
I know he's dead. I know he's done. Oh, no.
That's the worst feeling right there.
It is. You know you're dead and there's nothing you can do. You want to flash. You want to hit some button to make sure you can keep yourself alive. They're going to try a desperation play under Dragoon here.
Going after Dragoon. They're going to deny the call of the Forge God, but Spawn doesn't do enough damage at this stage of the game. Dragoon. He's too buffy right now. He's the double sunfire, the Bramble Vest. He doesn't give a good goddamn. He's still going through with this fight, and so is the rest of Wildcard. As it's just another victim set to the fountain once again. As Top Diff is gonna head to see his friends, and now the game's getting closed out. Wildcard Gaming, a late game domination as they take game number 1.
Weren't active enough early. I think Polar Ace, this is a team composition that has pretty decent early game in both their bot and their top lane. Yeah, the mid lane swap up here with the Tristana into the mid lane put BUCOC in a really rough place, but he absorbed a lot of the pressure in amazing ways, and there was no response to that pressure coming onto the bottom or the top side of the map. It felt like Dragonman Kim was kind of sleeping on the job for the first 10-15 minutes of the game. Spawn and Hero, Spawn and Julian, that is, never really found the 2v2 engagement they were looking for because Command, Attack, and Joey just weren't letting them. They were always anywhere else on the map they could be. And, you know, the Renekton got the solo kill early, did some good things, but it's an Ornn. Once he gets to the later stages of the game, it doesn't matter if you've been beating him in the laning phase. The armor is going to be there, the stats are going to be there, and the engage is going to be there.
I mean, that's what we saw, tried and true. But taking this back earlier towards more of the early game, my biggest commendation just has to go over towards how Wildcard played that early game and how they were able to just stay relevant throughout that at a time where Polar Ace should have been controlling the game.
A lot of that does go to this Tristana having pure control of the mid lane. If this is the Syndra Echo matchup, I think BUCOC would have had an opportunity to potentially look at roaming the map, controlling the jungle, controlling the river alongside DMK, and having a little bit better opportunity, and then TX might not have popped off as hard. But that lane swap threw everybody for a loop, it seemed like, on the side of Polar Ace. They had no response to it in the mid lane. It was constantly pushing. It was the first one to fights comparative to Echo. And again, with just the roaming bottom lane, there was never any punishment to come there. So it was all on Top Diff to try to make things happen for his team early on. And it wasn't enough. It just was happening into an Ornn. That's just a stone wall you're never going to be able to break through. I got to give the commendations to TX and his pressure that he applied mid lane being the real driving force behind winning the early and mid game here.
That really was the butterfly effect right there. Just that lane swap resulted pretty much in that win. I think there's no other way to say that.
You got to be careful now if you're on the side of Polar Ace, because it looked good. The composition was there. I think they could have won a game like this, but they got completely thrown off the bat with that lane swap, and they got to be prepared for it in game number 2, or at least consider that the fact might be there when they're thinking about where this composition could go.
So we're going to throw it over to short break. When we return, we'll get into game number 2 of Wildcard Gaming versus Polar Ace here on Risen Esports Champions League. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Risen Esports Champions League. In today's matchup, Wildcard Gaming, Polar Ace, game number 1. Already going in the favor of Wildcard Gaming. Let's see what game number 2 has to offer, Rebel.
Looked really standard from Wildcard in game number 1. Thought that not only was it T-Ax's pop-off, but the draft itself felt really, really well-rounded from Wildcard. I want to see Polar Ace take a little bit more of that approach to game number 2, at least. I loved the Calista set. I thought that was immaculate, but having so many volatile champions, roaming champions, kind of dive champions on their composition makes it kind of difficult to play. So the pieces were there from Polar Ace, and maybe the execution would have been better if they didn't have the lane swap come through, but I don't know if we'll see that twice in a row. That feels like a kind of a sucker punch move from Wildcard game number 1.
when I saw the composition of Polar Ace, I especially if I still see those compositions side by side, I still favor Polar Ace's comp just because of the early game power it had. But it was just that execution for that lane swap you were mentioning earlier. That's where everything went bad. So it's going to be curious to see how Polar Ace go around this time as the bans are already coming out. Yuumi and Zoe were moved from the Rift first.
Not too surprising, they're both very high priority champions that these two were looking at in game number 1. Surprisingly, the Veigar gets banned out from Polar Ace at number 2. It makes me think there's a counter that they're looking at that they want the Veigar out of the game for, because they don't have to ban out the Varus this time. That's now onto Wildcard's plate that they have to ban out. So Trundle or Graves could be gone here, and I expect the Graves versus the Trundle as opposed to anything else. And the Varus, of course, going to be taken out no matter what. Syndra would still be on the board in that case as well.
Polar Ace will have the first pick being blue side this time. So let's see if they do want to focus over towards that Syndra, whatever else could be on the Rift for them. Still waiting for that last ban to go through.
You still have Set and Graves and the likes of I was going to say a couple other meta champions, but it doesn't matter because Tristana's gone and the Graves does get taken off. The Syndra is still available and the Trundle is still available, are two of the picks that you could look at. As well as the Nocturne, believe it or not, coming through. The Polar Ace banned that out last time, didn't ban it out this time, so it's possible that Wildcard looks at that as a potential piece for their team.
So waiting to see what they want to go for here. Yeah, the Syndra getting locked in.
Not yet.
Pretty obvious, pretty standard on that one. It's really up to Wildcard to have a good response for this, and they did have first pick last time. We're gonna see how they do on that rotation.
Yeah, Busiosi had himself a decent game last game on the Echo. Very protective, very defensive, but not always the way you want to play the Echo. On the Syndra, you feel a lot better playing in that similar style just because of what you're capable of doing. You see Set locked in here for the side of Wildcard. Again, the Trundle's there if they want it. The Kallista's there if they want to take their shot at the Set Kallista in the bottom lane, but you can just hide the information from the remainder of the draft by taking Set and taking something else, potentially a mid lane matchup. And it's the Vel'Koz. I saw a little bit in the match history here of command attack, especially with the Glacial Rune. You can punish a lot of other mages. It's easy to blind pick, and I think in any 1v1 matchup, it's perfectly fine. It's just very, very easy to gank.
Yeah, so grabbing those right there.
Mm-hmm.
Able to grab the Set, able to grab the Vel'Koz, and now we're just waiting for the response to come out of Polar Ace and what they want to really go for here. And I mean, the last time we saw it was just pure aggro, and they are getting a little bit of a reflection of that by grabbing the Renekton once again, but is still a very early pick, Renekton.
It is. You see that it's not a bad blind pick into most things that would be in the top side of the map, which is the one important thing about it. But this is also kind of forcing the hand of themselves to play the Renekton top lane because they see the Set. So you do get a blind pick in Renekton if you're on the side of Wildcard. It's not always going to be the most effective because Renekton's not bad in the laning phase. But the Set being flexible is another really important thing because you can throw it top into the Renekton if you feel comfortable in that matchup, or you could throw it just about anywhere else. Vel'Koz could still sneak into the support or even ADC role if you really needed it to be flexible. They grabbed the Gragas. I like this a lot better for DMK. I feel like the Gragas is rather strong in the meta right now. Feels really good in terms of team compositions. It has the early pressure it needs to. And there's the Kallista right there. So it does look like they're going to flex the Set into the support role and get rid of anything aggressive that could potentially throw Cog into the works here of the Kallista Set.
And now rounding out the first phase of the draft, and now already Wildcard going straight after the ADC pool, banning away the Draven, but the response out of Polar Ace is going to go after that jungler pool. And as we know, that's going to be the open one right there. That's going to be the focus for Wildcard Gaming as Yasuo gets banned away as well. Going to deny away that combo of the Yasuo Gragas.
Make sure they can't have that one for themselves. Can be flexed into the bottom lane. I think Spawn does play a fair amount of Yasuo, which wouldn't be shocking to see. So they're going to take that one off the board immediately and can be a little flexible with where the Syndra goes. So yeah, now Yasuo not going to be available, as well as the Draven that could throw a kind of trouble towards the Kallista Set. The Olaf and the Hecarim, both champions that love to run at people that are relatively immobile. Syndra is one of those champions. So they're putting a little bit of protection here into the likes of Busiosi, so he doesn't have to, play the Echo to just be defensive in his laning phase, getting dived all the time. Last game certainly had its toll on him, making sure there's a little bit of defense for this laner.
There's the next pick going over to Wildcard. So far for Polar Ace, Syndra, Renekton, Gragas. I definitely echo your thoughts right there. I like the way you're going with that, and Gragas, very flexible at the early stages of the game, at the mid stage of the game. He's overall a flexible champion, and the response to the Gragas is going to be the Sejuani coming out of Wildcard to bring a little bit more team fight in.
That is really interesting because we don't see much of Sejuani. In fact, tanks in general in the jungle are relatively kind of far and few between. The Scar in our last game was something we didn't see, and it's going to be shorter Ace on it again. I don't think it's that bad right now, especially into the likes of Gragas. You can do quite a bit in terms of ganking, and you can set up bottom lane or the Vel'Koz for quite a bit with all the CC and lockdown that you got, especially into single targets. So really do enjoy it, and the Gragas isn't something that punishes it massively in the early game. So the Annie, I'm going to guess, was not what they wanted. I'm going to guess that's Thresh, and then they're looking at the Pantheon as the potential return into something else. So it is the Thresh that's going to be coming in here. Now the question is it Syndra bottom lane, is it ADC that we're going to be looking at here, or are they going to flex something else and they're going to have the Pantheon get thrown in somewhere because that's what they're hovering at the minute?
So I'm very curious over towards Wildcard and their pick of a top laner in this case, because Sejuani, at least historically, has always been one of those who can synergize well with top laners who can stick on to their opponents and stack up those permafrost. So final pick will be coming out in just a second for Wildcard as Polar Ace go for the Aphelios.
Yeah, go for a very standard bottom lane. In fact, it's one of my favorite bottom lanes right now. Aphelios thrives with champions that can, kind of synergize with his ability to pick people off with Gravitum or Severum, whatever gun he's got, and then also reposition him in teamfights. This is a fantastic grab for Wildcard. So it's one of the few things that I think can beat a Renekton at times during the laning phase, and Dragoon is a specialist at the champion. This is one of the champions that makes him famous, and one of the ones I see him play the most. I'm super excited. I've casted it once before, didn't get to see it pop off, but I saw him dominate the laning phase with it, and I'm ready to see it again.
So I am really, with the way these comps are going, it's really all over the place. It does feel like we're just looking for skirmishes. We're just looking for more of a war zone, a battle of attrition throughout this game into the mid.
Yeah, for me right now on the side of Wildcard, they've got 3 winning lanes. You've got Darius on the top side, who's not bad into Renekton, and it's kind of a skill matchup early on, but I think the Darius, when the damage, the Executioner starts coming through, can actually take it to the Renekton. Once Blade of the Rune King, Black Cleaver comes through for Renekton, it gets a little hard in the laning phase for the Darius, but I think it's one that the Darius can win. Might be actually the best matchup for Polar Ace, but mid lane, Vel'Koz can bear down on a Syndra, Kalista set can bear down on an Aphelios at any time in the laning phase, no matter who his support is, even though it's kind of Thresh, the best support to pair alongside the Aphelios. So for me, now we've gone from shorter Ace has to pick a lane and then play around it as best as possible, defend it as best as possible, to shorter Ace can do anything he wants. He can farm up, he can gank any lane he wants, he can take any fight because you just have such dominant lanes. It's when they start to come together that it feels a little bit more discombobulated, and that's where Polar Ace wants to look. They want to play with Gragas and Syndra and Renekton. They want to play with Gragas and Thresh and Aphelios. They want to play with Renekton and Thresh and Aphelios. They want 3v3s, skirmishes, and team fights rather than just the 1v1s, the 2v2s that you'd normally find earlier in the game.
I mean, more than anything, it's just going to be the pick. I mean, the Scatter of the Week, the Thresh, Gragas, Renekton, they all work really well at picking out champions. Once the neutral objective fight starts coming in, that's where you are going to be keeping a close eye on how Polar Ace start playing the map and setting up their team fights.
They are. Going to be exciting to see how they're able to do that one as the game comes through. It's a little bit of a shift of momentum that we saw from game number 1. It felt like Polar Ace were the ones with the much stronger early game, the much stronger 1v1 matchups. Wasn't successful for them, so they're taking a little bit of the flip side of the coin. The Renekton worked well for them, and they've changed pretty much everything else to make sure that they have some of the competition when it comes to the team fighting, at the sacrifice of losing their lanes now. Again, I don't know where it is that the Gragas is going to be able to find success at any given point in the game, but finding those little windows where you're able to gank for your Syndra, gank for your Aphelios, or put pressure onto the Renekton lane to get him a little further ahead of the Darius is what's going to be the kind of the spotlight here for DMK.
Yeah, now I'm just waiting for the switch up. What's it going to be? What's Polar Ace going to pull out here? Now that we've hyped up Wildcard and how their laning is going to go, what lane is suddenly just going to be swapped and blow our minds? You know?
TX is actually going to be taking Kalista top lane into Renekton, and it's going to be Dragoon bottom lane with the Darius to match the Elbow Bruiser up against the Aphelios. It's going to make him feel like he wouldn't want to have ever played League of Legends before in his life. If I'm calling something crazy, that's what I'm expecting to be.
Who knows in this season of League? I mean, every season that goes by, the flex picks just get more flexible.
That they do. Again, you could even throw, arguably, Vel'Koz into the bottom lane if things aren't going proper. It's not a great matchup for the Kalista in the mid lane up against the Syndra just because of her range, but you certainly could throw that option into the bottom lane if you really, really absolutely needed to. So there's a little bit of flexibility here. I don't expect any shenanigans or lane swaps in this game from the side of Wildcard, though. I do like the lane setup that they've got for themselves, and if they're able to play the way that they did last game in the early game, this could be an even bigger snowball than what we saw before.
Yeah, so Battle Line's pretty much drawn here. Wildcard, they're looking for that 2-0, and they would love to get against Polar Ace. I mean, Polar Ace, they did win last week's game. Wildcard, unfortunately, losing their last week's game. So, you know, being able to take Polar Ace down to their level would definitely be satisfying in the standings.
It's a tough loss last week that I think that was taken. It was by LB GURP Nation, which is a team that doesn't play all that often. I didn't have a lot of information on them, and they 2-1 up against Wildcard, which is a mild surprise in my mind. Seeing them this week, especially with how well they played game number 1, it is a really big surprise, and they do need this bounce-back win. Putting them at 1-1, tying them with Polar Ace, keeping them up there in the standings, making sure they don't fall too far behind early in the season to keep their hopes alive for playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And Polar Ace, you know, they already had that 2-0 start to the split, and this is definitely a little bit humbling because Polar Ace, a lot of people do tend to back them just because of their historical history and how, how they did used to be a dynasty, as it was mentioned earlier. It's definitely been a rough ground to see this game play out the way it has, and almost be shocked at the way Polar Ace did respond to the pressure in the last game.
Yeah, I have a really high expectation for the side of Polar Ace. As you said, it's not only the history that they bring to the table and having had dominance in the scene before, but I mean, you look at the names on this team. We talked about it before the game in the series had started. Flair's in the top lane. DMK in the jungle is one of my favorite players at the position. Spawn is an absolute beast. He even showed it in the last game, just how talented he could be. And Julian, not in the mid lane, but still a heavy name. UCOC certainly looked really good as well. This is a team with plenty of talent on it. You just got to see them capitalize because, again, my expectations are high for them, so I want to see them at minimum take this game, bring us to game 3. You lose the 2-1 up against Wildcard, you can feel good about that. You have things to build on, mistakes to work on, and you go to 1-1, which isn't a horrible record. But if you give up a 2-0, that's a really, really big morality loss in my mind.
Yeah, so Champion Select is now done. We're going to throw it over to short break. When we return, we will hit the riff for this matchup of Polar Ace versus Wildcard Gaming here in Risen Esports Champions League. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Risen Esports Champions League. Wildcard Gaming versus Polar Ace in match point in favor of Wildcard Gaming now, and they're coming into the Rift with pretty strong lanes.
They are looking to take advantage of the pressure that they had in the last game, but their lanes weren't looking spectacular, but at least had themselves the opportunity to take them. At least TX dominated his laning phase, so looking for their own opportunity here to take advantage of that. I do notice that, okay, so Joey decided for the Omnistone instead of the Phase Rush that we saw in the last game. I like Omnistone quite a bit more than the Phase Rush on the set support, just because of the fact that Phase Rush is nice for putting you into the right position, but most of the time you don't usually need the mobility. You're playing a little bit more defensively for your ADC, unless you're just getting tossed in and you need to chase people down earlier on. So in my mind, the Omnistone is a little bit more wide-ranging and a more effective keystone in the long term of the game than something like the Phase Rush would be.
I mean, come on, tossing in a set, one of the most fun things you can have done to you as a set. There we go. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, just imagine set with just like a Malphite ultimate. That's what he's getting in this particular case. Like, I can't get close. Wait, never mind. I can get close now.
And the RKO him back in just feels great, man.
It does feel rather nice. I want to see Kalista like throw him in max range and then like flash ultimate like Elise in just an insec with a set or anything else. I want to see it. I know it's very unlikely, but it would be nice to get that, to bear witness to something of a lot.
Yeah, I was thinking of the same thing actually. I was matching that in my head as well. Yeah, starting out in these lanes, Dragoon already taking advantage of that passive, the bleeding. It is very hard to deal with once those stacks start adding up.
Interesting. Okay, I don't know. Hold on, I don't think that's... The Doran Shield's only 450, right, in terms of pricing?
Yeah.
Did he just pop his pot immediately? Because I don't... He didn't have a pot, and he didn't have 50 gold in his inventory.
Half health.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Yeah, tough rough place against the Darius. This is the strength, the passive early on to the Darius makes this an impressive laning phase.
Ooh, trying to really take advantage of that level 2 Joey flashing in, but it does burn the flash of 2 hero as well.
Not as valuable, I'd say, to burn the Thresh hat flash in exchange for the Set flash, because Set needs it to get into a fight, and the Thresh is capable of, kind of affecting fights with the Flay, the Hook, and the Lantern in many different ways. In my mind, that actually takes quite a bit of the pressure away from the laning phase that would be had by TX and Joey, at least for the start of the early game, without a lot of supplemental CC coming through from anyone.
Oh, Dragoon! First blood! That was so fast off the level 3.
That's the Dragoon diff in the top lane right now. When he's got Darius at the moment, you're going to be seeing that all day right now. I mean, Renekton is a strong champion in the top lane, but it makes no difference. Darius is insanely good in the 1v1, and when you've got somebody that plays it as often as Dragoon does, you got to know that he knows every matchup up and down.
Oh, certainly he does. That's a great start for the Dario Chopman Dragoon over in this top side, and you're seeing that early pressure really come to fruition from Wildcard. You saw it in the bot lane with the flash forward of Joey trying to take advantage of that level difference. You saw it in the top lane with Dragoon. It's just pedal to the metal now.
Even better, I think, also, is the wave wasn't in a terrible position, ended up bouncing back to the middle, and now he's going to stack up against Dragoon, so he's not going to fall behind in farm. He's going to get quite a bit of a stacked wave, and he still has Ghost compared to the TB that has now been burnt from the Renekton. Really good at exchange of summoners that can still let him be aggressive and potentially look to freeze the lane. I'm also really interested in the dagger he's got in his inventory right now, because you don't usually see the dagger start. He might not have had gold for any other item breakpoint, but still, you don't see a lot of Darius's build the dagger first item or even component wise until you're looking at the Trinity Force completion. So really interesting first buy here, trying to get some advantage in the laning phase over the Renekton even further than he has.
Yeah, when he came back to lane, he only had about 60 gold, so I believe he only had enough for the dagger. So, and it's not the worst grab. I mean, you can stack the dot really fast with it. Not really fast, but faster.
You can do it, and he buys into Stinger too, which I think is the important thing, that you still go into Trinity Force and then you're able to utilize the dagger. It's just a little surprise. Again, you usually don't see that component for a while.
Just look at Joey being a menace. Also trying to put on that pressure. My favorite right here. Laid underneath the tower. Now Joey critically low. The heal burnt to be able to keep him alive, but a return of fire coming out of TX. All meanwhile forces the heal of Spawn.
So impressive hook from Julian onto Joey to find him, get him underneath the tower with the flay, but also really dangerous because the Haymaker with the true damage landed onto Spawn because of it, which is why TX was able to force out the heal from Spawn, which is another important summoner now burnt. So no flash, ignite, or heal for the bottom lane of the Aphelios and Thresh up against an aggressive bot lane, especially since they're already sitting at level 4. When that level 6 comes through, the engage can come out, and the only defensive tool you've got is the flash at the moment from Spawn.
Sitting pretty for Wildcard Gaming in this early game, and now Response being poised to be set out from DMK, trying to set up over towards this top side. Put some damage in, but the teleport is going to be burnt. They need to get damage on fast towards Dragoon, and that's what they're looking to do right here. Top Diff will be able to score the kill as Command Attack tries to finish off Top Diff. Looks like it's going to happen. One more auto would actually finish the job, but the Q keeps him alive only a little bit longer. Incineration Beam going out. DMK runs critically low, but will not go down, resulting in a 1-for-1.
So close. Nice TP coming in from Command Attack a little bit late, potentially. Oh, the Hex Slash. Well done for Joey to die. And just stylistic dodging of that hook right there. Joey, I want to see some sit-ups in the face of Julian right there. Still, though, nice play on the top side. DMK knows that the pressure mounting from the Darius is really high up against the Renekton. You already see the 2 wave difference in terms of their farming, and Dragoon is controlling the wave already, especially since he's got Vamp Scepter. Now, the Vamp Scepter makes me think he's going Blade of the Rune King, which I have not seen yet on a Darius, but that would be interesting to match up against the likes of the Renekton. But certainly, you knew the pressure had to be resolved up there, so DMK makes that play happen. Good thing, though, again, the TP from Command Attack punishes the Renekton, make sure he doesn't get to punish by pushing a wave in, getting any tower plates, anything of the such. The flash burn from Shorter Ace was really bad because he got nothing, he got no assist, he got no kill, he got nothing during the course of that fight, but it was enough to push DMK out the back of the turret and make sure he couldn't come back out on the map and hover around the lane to make sure that this could get shoved in and punish Dragoon anymore.
Speed of Dragoon looking over towards that top side. Gold difference about 400, only 6 minutes into the game. Dragoon's already doing a pretty solid job, but here's the level 6 right there. Top Diff having to back up.
Yeah, and the 4 minions still sitting there for Dragoon as well. It wasn't even that control. Nice control on the bottom side of the map. Again, TX and Joey here have the champions to be able to control the bottom side, especially with all the summoners that have been burnt. Flash going to be coming back up here for Julian very quickly. But again, really nice control across all lanes at the moment. The Vel'Koz TP wasn't exploited as possible. Busiosi had to get a little bit of pressure to push him in there, but not enough to get control back in the river to make sure the Dragon's going to go his way. And the Vel'Koz is actually really good in gold right now and in farm comparative to the Syndra. These supports, man. There's constant combat between the two of them.
Yeah, they got a vendetta with each other.
They do.
Sure, man. You know, one of the reasons Busiosi could actually gotta hold that thought. It's only a 5 breaking now. Busiosi forced to burn the flash, but want to continue this fight is going to be Dragonman Kim. Busiosi critically low. Shorter Ace will be able to grab the kill. It might cost him his life, though. Trying to stay alive. Wants to get the permafrost stun, but Dragonman Kim will stop him in his tracks. Dragon Kim's looking for more with Command Attack. Will get the body slam. No flash available, but not enough to lock him down.
Dragoon is not going to fancy his chances in the 2v1. I think it's possible, but again, with the ultimate coming through from Renekton, it would make it very difficult, especially with no mana currently sitting on Command Attack. Nice 1-for-1 play on bottom side.
Ooh, the exchange coming out, able to use the ultimate. TX will be able to save the support, but maybe at the cost of his life. No, TX just barely flashing out in time.
I don't really know what had happened right there. It looked like the crescendum with the turrets alongside the Calibrum reset that had come through from the Aphelios guns meant that the range was not expected from TX whatsoever. He pulls in Joey, and I think they took a little bit too long trying to decide whether to go in or to leave from that fight, and that's what cost him the entire health bar. So they have to force it back. They lose a pretty big wave, and they're going to give off a lot of pressure here to Spawn, who's going to stick around, get a turret plate, which is not going to go punished very easily. It does allow a reset quickly from TX and Joey, though, to walk up for Rift Herald, and that means they're going to be there much faster. Thresh could respond, but you're still going to have the 5v4 on the top side of the map.
And meanwhile, Dragoon thought he was getting ganked right there, forced to burn his ghost. All in the meanwhile, now Shorter Ace looking to find the engagement over onto DMK. DMK will fall to Shorter Ace. Busiosi trying to walk away, gets pulled back in, locked down. TX will grab the kill.
Rift Herald does go the way here of Wildcard, but thankfully UDC Polar Ace, they are able to cap. Actually, I think I got that completely backwards. Polar Ace able to get themselves the Rift Herald in the back pocket, and Wildcard are the ones that punish. Again, they're the first ones there. They've got TX, they've got Joey, they've got Shorter Ace there to punish the remainder of the play that had come through. Now, Julian fancies a fight up against the jungler.
Gets stopped, stunned. That's going to be the end of that. Straight back to the focus over in the top lane. The lane swaps from both bot lanes coming in, and Tuhira trying to get in before that plate does go down. Not going to be able to grab the plate is TX.
Not quite, yeah, just a couple autos off right there. Really nice decision making here with the back coming through. Of course, TX and Joey forced back because of the play that had happened, and they lost quite a bit of minions on the bottom side. But then they rotate up to the top side, end up pushing in a wave of their own. It's not quite as big as Spawn's was, but does lose him a little bit of gold, about half a wave's worth, which is roughly what they had, half of what they lost on the bottom side of the map. And the pressure that they had, they picked up a couple of kills for the remainder of their team. So you really like the play coming out. The Darius doesn't lose anything on bottom side to the Renekton plate yet, and they're both building Blade of the Ruin King, so this matchup between two aggressive top laners is just going to be compounded with this attack speed.
And a little bit of a roam coming here from the bot lane. TX and Joey just looking to establish as much vision as they can over towards that top side river. Oh, but meanwhile, looking to try and grab top diff over bot side.
A little bit of pressure being put onto the Renekton here. Dragoon, I mean, he'll use the pressure anytime you give it to him. I do like, again, Shorter Ace trying to find anything he can on the map. Puts pressure into the mid lane with command attack, getting him a little bit trying to put some pressure onto Dragoon here, make sure he feels fine in the laning phase. You see DMK trying to make the play happen. Mid lane, though. Oh,
no flash at all, and Boosie OC will go down. A great gank to come out of Shorter Ace.
Is again, my eye's still on bottom lane. It's set right now because fortunately the Renekton is causing a freeze to happen, and I know Dragoon does not want that.
Ooh, trying to collapse onto Dragoon. Able to get a lot of damage in. Now comes the guillotine, but the damage was too much. DMK grabs the kill.
One more auto, I think, would have been able to set him into the right place, not able to get the execute to come through onto Renekton. A gorgeous pull did disrupt the body slam coming in from the Gragas, which I thought might have actually gotten him out, but he was just too far in. The Gragas had a little too much CC on the back end of that fight, so 1-for-1 across the map, play mid in exchange for the play on the bottom side. A little bit of a reprieve also for the Renekton on the top side. They're looking, and the Rift Herald might secure, definitely going to secure them first tower here.
The charge going to come through, and first brick will go over towards Polar Ace. And as you can see, TX and Joey, they got a while before they're going to be able to take that down. But every time you do get a recall out of the bot lane of Polar Ace, right there, TX and Joey quick to respond and start grabbing those plates.
Yeah, like that they're able to push up very quickly. They have the dominant bottom lane, and they're able to make things happen. No plays have come through once again in the pure 2-on-2 with the Aphelios and the Thresh, but able to make quite a bit work. I also love that Polar Ace now makes the rotation as well towards Dragon, where they punish more on the bottom side. They don't just get the tower, they also use the Cinners pushing power up against the Vel'Koz in order to confirm that Dragon for themselves, take it to a 1-1 against their opposition here. Stalls a little bit more time if they want to play a little bit more towards the later game style.
And smooth move coming out from Wildcard Gaming as well. Knowing that the dragon was just taken, they head over towards that top side jungle of Polar Ace and just light it up like it's Christmas. Get as much jungle tracking as they can do.
Love the early Christmas tree coming in here, as you're saying, with the lights on the top of the map, especially with Rift Herald can be spawning in about 2 minutes. They're going to be able to track at least what the pathing and the general idea of the clearing speed here is from Sejuani, or not from Sejuani, from DMK on the top side of the map. And if they don't see him, they know he's going to be on there or in that proximity roughly around the time that the Rift Herald is going to be in that place. So they know where he's going to be at any given time if they don't see him on those boards.
And this would have been a very, very hard play to pull off from Wildcard if they did want to set up a dive towards that, because flashes are available, all the summoners are up for spawn and 2 hero. Not really worth trying to go for it at this stage of the game. And you can see, here comes this rotation once again, and out comes TX to shove the wave as quickly as he can.
And now also DMK really heavy hovering around this lane of the Darius. One of the better ways to try to shut down the Darius is, of course, if you've got a laner that can take a fight against him. You see a little bit now, Dragoon had some help from Joey, but DMK gonna walk out of that one. Another TP comes in though.
Ooh, that is really good from DMK, just to be able to escape that so cleanly.
Oh, yeah, just too much movement speed. Yeah, they had the Predator boots for just the movement speed, ran into the Rift Scuttler as well, so able to run completely away. If command attack had hit him with that GLP, that was a very dead Gragas, but is going to put them off. Now top diff looking for a play.
And here comes DMK once again, flashing over the wall, being able to survive Dragoon, but the pressure coming out of top diff is absolutely enormous now. He does have that completed Blade of the Ruin King.
set up a camp on the top side of the map, making sure the Renekton cannot continue to bully the matchup, but he got that early solo kill in, and now a pretty significant, about 1,000 gold lead had now for the Renekton, which is going to mitigate any of the internal 1v1 pressure that this Darius is going to have against the Renekton for the foreseeable future. If DMK continues to also put that pressure on, it's going to be difficult for Dragoon to get back in. My one complaint is that Shorter Ace has not been able to find anything in the opposite two lanes. You'd think with command attack on a Glacial Augment mid laner, especially one with a lot of damage like the Vel'Koz, you'd have the ability to gank up against a very immobile Cinder. We're going to see that here.
Yeah, Scout of the Week, able to get the double stun, and that will ensure that BuCOC stays alive, but the cost of a little bit of mid pressure, that's not going to be the objective for Wildcard, though. They do want to set up for Shelly, setting up for that Herald, being very, very proactive with those wards they were using earlier.
Polar Ace for a team right now with a immobile bot laner, even with the Thresh around, with an immobile mid laner for the most part with the Syndra, are doing such a good job making sure there is no pressure being applied to them at all. Now Julian has to flash out and he can still be under try.
Yeah, Joey going right after 2 hero. Explosive cast is only going to push them closer. Out comes Death Sentence, but it's not going to land on anything. Mana bar too low, 2 hero has to take that recall. That's going to forfeit a lot of control of the Rift over to Wildcard as they set up for the Herald.
Calibrum Crescendum is a good setup for Guns here. Spawn wants to try to put some pressure over the top of the wall. TX is going to take half his health bar here. Oh, doesn't hit the moonshot. That would have definitely been over half the health bar. But again, any amount of pressure you can apply right now, especially since DMK has to back, you saw the Thresh had to back, and UCOC also back before the Rift here. That would have been such an easy play for them to make because of the damage put on a TX. Must have not felt confident that they could take the fight afterwards, so instead going to go back to pushing top lane, looking for the reset really quickly, waiting for the Vel'Koz to make a response back to the mid lane before looking for that objective, and they're not even close to looking at it yet, despite the ward advantage coming through on the side of Wildcard.
Yeah, all those wards set up, but just beautiful play to come out of Spawn to be able to delay this and prolong this and make this difficult to find the proper timing to set up for the Herald. That being said, that's not the only neutral objective that's going to be on the map. We saw 45 seconds until Mountain Drake hit, so Wildcard are looking to make their move now so they can set up for that as well.
DMK going back to controlling the bottom side of the map. This is the Rift Herald that should be going the way of Wildcard here. But again, with the Renekton being as powerful as he is with the advantage, it's the completed Blade of the Rune King versus just the components here for the Darius, combined with DMK's consistent presence, as well as BuCOC's solid control, at least solid footing here in the mid lane, means that they have priority over the bottom side river. Looks like a rotation down could mean something, but we got to see what they're going to do. The Rift Herald actually goes into the pockets of TX, and he's staying on the top side of the map with no teleport, so this should just be a given over Dragon onto the side of Polar Ace. They should pick that one up for free.
But look at Dragoon, 3 men looking to dive them, and they pick it up with ease, and now there's 3 men wailing away at this turret. It's a tier 2. You're only taking a tier 1 if you're Wildcard over on that top side. It has to be a response. It has to be fast.
And they've rotated now also their bottom lane to mid lane, so they have all 5 members on the bottom side of the map to go for the Mountain Drake. They've given up only the 1 play. They didn't even use Rift Herald on top side, so they still have that tool for themselves, but they didn't use it to get any additional advantage. They only lost the top or the bottom inner tower here on the side of Wildcard, and they're also going to lose the Dragon here because they just have no pressure anywhere on the map. Really, really solid back row coming in from the side of Polar Ace, looking very, very consistent with their calls.
And it all came down to that vision they were establishing earlier, knowing that Wildcard were going after the Herald, knowing they have that advantage to start laying down those control wards because there's 4 over on that bottom side river.
And all of this from a grudge because Dragoon got an early kill against Flares. Flares just took it personally.
But Shelly now hitting the Rift. Explosive cast goes out as Dragonman Kim looks to go forward, but Shelly will take down that turret. Ultimate's going to be thrown out, and here comes Joey. Disintegration Ray is going to be used. A lot of damage going through both ways, but TX will grab kill number 1 onto Bucio. Shorter Ace looking to walk away. TX is now locked down by Top Diff, and that is a net win going over to Polar Ace as they exchange 2 for 1.
Nice little play from BuCOC gets popped in that one, but Spawn went basically untouched. A great Moonlight Vigil, as well as the Disrupt onto the Vel'Koz ultimate coming through as well, making sure he didn't get punished by the jump in. Was just really, really well played here from the side of Polar Ace, getting 2 kills for themselves after having the far superior macro play across the map, getting a Dragon and a tower for themselves, or an inner versus an outer tower. So continuing to just run the map. There is no aggression that can come through on the side of Wildcard as we've seen it so far. Just struggling to find any ground to work with in this game. Shorter Ace isn't having himself a poor performance, but certainly hasn't been able to find what he needs to kind of capitalize on the camp that occurred for the Renekton early on in this one.
And now top diff over on this top side, wailing away at this tower, looking to take out another of the outer towers, still unable to grab that mid lane tower, and here comes the defense coming in from Wildcard, just coming in the nick of time to really stop this tower from going down. TX and Joey will be responding to this, and it's also going to be DMK coming over towards the spot side. You can see Polar Ace have their eyes set on this objective. Team fight looking to break out soon as DMK sets up right over the wall, throwing out the barrel. The dive is ready to be initiated. Shorter Ace is going to meet this dive, and top diff in a horrible place. The permafrost stacks are there. One more auto would be able to finish him off, but the flay just in time. A flash forward from TX, able to grab the kill, try to back off. Here comes Scatter the Weak, and Dragonman Kim will take down TX, but it's going to be another exchange as Command Attack puts out the Ray. It's interrupted by the explosive task of DMK. Polar Ace played the micro of Ace fight very, very closely as Spawn is able to join in as well. Takes a good chunk of damage there. He's running really low. 2-for-1 exchange thus far. And what a wild fight to go through.
Exchange back and forth constantly between these two. Dragoon wasn't there, so that ended up being, I think, a 4v5 here for the side of Wildcard, thankfully getting the better of that one. They were so close to losing a couple of members. Really well played from Spawn and Buciosi, getting their damage out from a very long range away, but weren't able to capitalize on it. The damage from Command Attack, especially that Q and passive proc on a Spawn, dropped him 50% of his health in just one go. This buys Dragoon a little bit of time on the map, which is a rather nice thing to see. I also want to point out, I think early in that play, Hero had a wrong direction play. If he had played everybody backwards, could have potentially pulled flares out of the top lane in that particular regard, or in that particular play. But instead, he played everybody. I think it was maybe a panic play just to try to disrupt the movement of everybody, kept everyone close, and TX did, I think, burn Flash to move forward in that fight, which ended up getting him punished. But still, I think just a little bit of a misplay from Hero there might have cost him the life of his top laner.
So now let's see what that really results in, as Wildcard are able to hit this rift once again. They did take out all outers, and the one thing that's been working for them is they are able to get vision control over the objectives that they want to set up towards, and that's what you're seeing right here. Over towards this Baron, they know there's no wards coming out from Polar Ace, so Polar Ace have no clue that this Baron has just been started.
But Shorter Ace is not exceptionally taking this, but yeah, already down to 40% health, and TX does not have the damage with only the Blade of the Rune King and the Rune Hands completed. Now DMK, with the Predator pop, should be able to take control of the river, or at least the Rift Scuddler himself now. Puts them into a good place. Again, he had no river control just a second ago. Because of the attempted Baron from Shorter Ace and TX on their own, with not enough damage to take down the Baron, you end up losing the river control, or at least having some on the side of Polar Ace, which, yeah, again, feels really good for a team that has a pretty solid 5-on-5 team fight and a very strong Renekton in the side lane to work with.
Makes me kind of sad for Dragoon if you're actually watching the bot lane. He's hiding in bushes to just be able to absorb EXP and not have to take a fight with top diff, and that's a pretty rough spot to be if you're Darius.
Like I said, the grudge holds true from the beginning of the game. Flares got killed one time, and he's like, all right, DMK, bring it. Let's just bring this guy down. Make sure Darius players feel the effects everywhere as long as possible. Hasn't been able to unleash, hasn't been able to join pretty much any team fight, hasn't really had any skirmish pressure whatsoever. Dragoon has just been completely taken off. Oh! Nice hook!
Oh, the Dead Sense is able to land on the TX. They're locking down TX. TX so low, he falls! The Ray comes out. DMK will grab that kill. A very critical one. Your support for the ADC, you'll take it any day if you're Polar Ace.
Will. And Polar Ace, again, they're looking for the dragon. I don't think they need to take it quite yet, or at least they need to pressure around it. Renekton was in mid lane. I want to see him continue to pressure that mid tower and break that one for themselves. Then even rotate top, take top tower. They don't really have to worry too much about this fight. They lost, his ADC, the most important member, or one of the most important team fighting members here for nothing, and they're just going to get poked out by Vel'Koz, so I'm not in love with this. Top lane tower went down to minions, mid lane tower still under fire. Here's top diff looking for something.
A nice flank coming in. It's going to claim Joey now, top diff. To go out from over the wall, control going over to Polar Ace as they hold down this Drake. It's full retreat for Wildcard.
Nice play. They get the good trade, the fantastic hook coming through from Hero. A really good Moonlight Vigil from Spawn confirms the kill onto TX, who again was one of the more important members of the team fight and a consistent damage coming through. Command Attack continues to put pressure on the team with all this long range damage, the siege damage coming through from Vel'Koz, but it's not enough quite yet to actually pick off members of the team of Polar Ace. So they continue. DMK on a rampage right now, 4-1-3, as well as top diff with his 4-3-3 scoreline being very, very relevant in this game right now.
And one of the rough things about this game, at least for TX, is Kalista is such a short-range champion, and the composition of Polar Ace can punish that so quickly. You get too close to Syndra, you get stunned, unleash power, that's the end of your life. Same thing Dragonman Kim, top diff. It's hard for TX to be able to team fight in these, as the ultimate comes out from Shorter Ace. They're looking to take down 2 Hero. 2 Hero's starting to get low. TX looking to hop over the wall, and Shorter Ace will be able to grab that kill.
Nice play. A little bit of a catch out there. They're trying to get some pressure over the river. It was just a little bit faster coming through from the side of Wildcard. I think another issue that you're going to run through with TX is that there's a lot of CC and even soft CC coming through from the side of Polar Ace here. If the Gravitum is available for spawn and he hits you from a pretty decent distance with that gun, you're not going to be able to move anywhere with those jumps. Not to mention you got Dragonman Kim barrels to worry about, every other bit of CC as well. A little bit of a fight in the river.
Shorter Ace getting caught out. Will flash away top diff, going straight for the backline, but the Ray is going to be used out of command attack. Trying to claim the kill, going golden. It's going to be a 1-for-1 exchange thus far. Top laner for support this time in favor of Wildcard.
Yeah, quite a bit of health taken off of Shorter Ace, though, and TX even lost quite a bit of health in his little skirmish here with the Renekton, which is a pretty big deal to talk about. Dragoon continues to push in the mid lane, making sure they can't do anything with that. And there's a lot of wave clear from command attack to make sure they can't just push up into the river and completely reclaim control for the team that has the better 5-on-5, what they're looking for as best as possible. Slowly, I think Dragoon's effects in this game, I mean, he's not quite equal in gold to the Renekton yet, but there will come a time where he is efficient, or at least effective in these team fights or in these skirmishes once again, and his pressure is starting to, the grip on him into the solo lane alone is starting to loosen. You're feeling him walk into the river, take some priority on camps, take some priority on neutral objectives, and it's nice to see finally that Darius getting involved in the game.
I mean, one of the few things that's holding back Polar Ace right now is the inability to take out that mid lane, inability to open up this map and start getting their vision, because if they had that, I do believe Polar Ace would be in a much better spot. They'd be much better at finding these picks, at continuously killing TX more than they've done already.
Really good catch potential from the side of Wildcard as part of their drafting phase. You've got the Glacial Augment on the Vel'Koz alongside the Titanic Disruption, and then you've got Kalista Ultimate and the Sejuani Ultimate to be able to catch people. They're looking for Spawn now.
Yeah, trying to grab Spawn. Spawn does have flash. He's going to use it, pop it away, walk over towards his teammate, and be able to stay alive. A good attempt, but now it is a flash to Sephilios for the next team fight.
Thank you, Nimbus, Cloak, and Flash, getting a good enough distance, and also the movement speed to run away as best as possible. Actually, full health right now, and yet you don't have the defensive summoners, but as long as Julian sticks around in the general area, we'll be safe. Now, command attack!
Over the wall, command attack gets pushed away, but he will not go down. Puts down the Ray, gets in some damage. Look at TX come in, instantly punished, instantly destroyed. Now Polar Ace are going to look to take this one down. They are the ones who have the advantage in this fight as the numbers game is starting to add up. Claiming another kill will be top tip, and they will take it in a 2-4-3, but suddenly it's looking that much more beautiful. Now command attack trying to defend the mid lane. Polar Ace setting up for a siege.
Yeah, not able to take the Baron quite yet because they're terrified of Shorter Ace being able to smite it away despite being very low health. So instead, they're going to opt to siege up into the likes of Command Attack, who still is yet to get a back off either. He normally has great wave clear, but not going to be able to. That fight was important. As you said, there's a little bit of engage and not a lot of space for TX to work with. In this one, he was flash flayed into the box, and that little bit of soft CC, that one slow coming through from the box, is more than enough to completely cripple the mobility of Kalista, and that completely prevented TX from moving around in the fight, repositioning whatsoever, which is kind of the whole pivotal aspect of Kalista's kit. Then you also combine that with Spawn was untouched for the most part until the flash had come through from Joey, who's not going to be doing enough damage, and that's more than enough to win the team fight on the side of Polar Ace.
And of course, just outscale him by pressing R if you are the Syndra, as TX has felt so many times in this game. And I do gotta ask the question as to why TX hasn't just simply gone for the Quicksilver Sash at this stage when they're picking him out this many times.
It's a tough one. Again, because some of the CC actually does not have to do with hard CC. It's not the hook, it's the flay, it's the box, it's the grab room, it's the little stuff that slows you down as the Kalista, and there's so much of it that a QSS usually doesn't help Dragoon in a rough. Please, no!
Once again... It's just bullying at this point.
Yeah, like, at first I was like, yeah, go flares, you're getting revenge, and now I'm like, really? Like, you gotta keep putting this Darius down, is that what you have to do?
At least let him have his lunch money, but, ooh, look at this coming out of Joey, looking to try and take the fight to 5 members all by his lonesome. Not gonna happen. He's only trying to delay for the Baron that was trying to be started by Wildcard, but not really able to get that much damage into it, as, you know, you're only really relying on the Kalista.
Yeah, Callista has quite a bit of DPS. The Vel'Koz isn't bad either with the constant true damage stacking that's going to come through, and you have great execution with the combination of Smite and Rend, but they had no bearing to go for that Baron whatsoever. They would have had a 4v3 worst case scenario if Top Diff doesn't want to TP into that one, would have had the 5v3 as well as the Mountain Soul in their back pocket for this fight if they would have taken it. They had to know that that was going to be the case. No reset from Shorter Ace. I think he got spotted out as well. They're not going to push that advantage though. Instead, just going to be looking to take control back to the Baron pit.
Speaking of control, you're getting a lot of control from Polar Ace right here. Wards being placed all over this Baron side, setting up very preemptively before they take these recalls, before they get that reset. This is going to be one of those major purchases right here, that final back before the next heroic team fight around an objective.
Would hope that's going to be the case. Want to hit some of those item breakpoints. The big one I see right now is Top Diff. He's got TP, he's got Baron, or he doesn't have Baron quite yet, but he's going to be sitting in a side lane ready to come into a fight, and there is no chance that a Darius without an Executioners is ever going to touch this Renekton with how powerful he is right now. Basically, an entire item ahead of his opponent at the moment. And so Dragoon has no effect. Not to mention, Dragoon does not have TP. He is the one that has to be more proactive, or he's the one that has to have the pressure, because if the TP comes through from Top Diff, the Ghost comes through from Dragoon, and yeah, he'll be there eventually, but it's going to take him way too long to get to that fight and actually have an effect on anything.
That's the desperation play right there, but with so many members missing on the map, it's pretty obvious. Polar Ace know the shenanigans that Wildcard were up to. They did ping almost in the exact location. And yeah, it's desperate now. You're just trying to find picks because Polar Ace are just too damn strong right now.
And Polar Ace, I like the fact that they're pulling back on the map. Yeah, they have some information, but they don't need to do absolutely anything. Even without information, just back completely off your lanes, make sure they don't get too pushed in too far, and let Top Diff, let Flare just take over the side lane. He can stand there in his minion wave, and Dragoon can't do a thing about it. He's 2 levels and an entire item ahead. That's the Blade of the Rune King. He's looking up a tower. Wow!
Yeah, coming underneath the tower onto Dragoon, takes half his health, and is able to walk away relatively unscathed. Just a few more Qs will top off that health bar.
Gotta walk away as well, doesn't have the sustain or the pressure around minions, and that's gonna be an inhibitor tower taken out just by the pressure of flares, and they're pushing up right now looking for this dragon, and only Shorter Ace is here to contest it. Now you're looking at TX and Joey making the move as well, but Dragoon and Command Attack are nowhere close. Command Attack has the TP if they're gonna look for it consistently, but they're gonna pull off DMK to too much damage.
Yeah, trying to divide and conquer, get that pressure coming out from Top Diff, and then bait the Baron, dance around that, and try and catch Wildcard out in rotation. That's the name of the game for Polar Ace as they dance around these neutrals.
They are. They have to be a little bit afraid, again, of TX. TX actually is really, really fed in this one. He's sitting on about 14,000 gold with some of the kills he's gotten, some of the shutdowns he's gotten over the course of the game. So he is really scary, and there's no itemization advantage for the Aphelios at this moment because you've got the QSS in the inventory. The QSS is a half item that only helps with a little bit of magic resist, but more specifically the CC removal, and that little power trough that he's in right now is completely matched by TX. Yeah, TX doesn't have that QSS, but the power from the rest of the itemization is still there for this Callista. So this is kind of, I would say this is the power point where Callista is still slightly more ahead than the Aphelios in terms of team fighting, so long as it's not CC. From this point on, the Aphelios will always be more effective in the team fights than the Callista will. So you gotta look for something, especially now that Guardian Angel's been finished for TX.
Yeah, that Guardian Angel, gotta absolutely love it right now because that is gonna be the focus. They're gonna run right at TX and try and take him down. If he gets a second chance at these team fights, there's a chance you can protect them because for Wildcard, protecting TX is paramount to victory in this game. You need him to get his DPS off.
Oh.
But still, Wildcard are not gonna get a chance to breathe as Top Diff applying pressure on this top side.
Nice start coming through. Oh,
over the wall, able to put
Never
down
here.
the raid. Dragoon will put down the guillotine. Top Diff too low, will go down. TX over the wall, not able to get the still. Baron will go over to Polar Ace. A 1-for-0 exchange, but Polar Ace pick up Baron.
try to make the play across the map that they have been making all game on the side of Polar Ace, making sure the Dragoon gets the 1v1 win up against the Renekton, but pulling not only the Darius, but also perhaps your strongest pure team fighting champion in Command Attack in the Siege Mage that can poke down members around the Baron is a massive loss. Now, something I do want to mention, you do still have the Elder Drake coming through in 1 minute and 30 seconds, and TX can take advantage, and Vel'Koz very heavily takes advantage of that. DMK is in a rough place, he might get caught. lot.
Oh, going right after DMK. Only 2 hero spawn is there versus TX. TX is starting to put in the DPS. There's nothing to really stop him from getting in this DPS. So Short Race will go down. 2 hero now on the run. The autos are raining in once again from TX, but the flash comes out of 2 hero to keep him alive.
Rough place to be. The internal pressure into this jungle. They push up this ward line again. They're looking for what will be a win condition for their team. Yeah, they don't have the Mountain Soul, but they could get the Elder Drake, which is enough to kind of counteract what the Mountain Soul might bring to the table if you can get the execute damage, which is kind of the whole point of having the Rend, the Darius ultimate, and Vel'Koz on your team with that burst damage that all 3 of them can bring. So they synergize very well with the Elder Drake into a team that's got a lot of defenses. And the Syndra's in a good place, not a fantastic place. The Aphelios still looking for that 4th item that could really make him pop off in some of the team fights. And Spawn's been doing a lot, but he has to be afraid of when he approaches and how he approaches fights, especially if they're outnumbered. That's what you saw in the last one. He could have maybe cleaned that fight up with a solid Moonlight Vigil, but there were just too many members on the side of Wildcard to give that fight up.
Yeah, when TX is left unchecked, that's when the risk gets really, really high. And especially considering that TX didn't burn Flash, he didn't burn Heal, he didn't burn his Guardian Angel in that last fight. It's a huge win for Wildcard to get, but this is not going to relieve the pressure that they've been feeling. And Polar Ace know that, as you still have top diff over in that top side. A 4-man push going into the mid lane as a response to Elder. You're going to get some control and look for this team fight.
You will. It's very easy Elder for them to take. Again, you still have the Vel'Koz, you still have the Rend coming through. Why even compete for it at this point? Why not just give it? TP came in, fight's gonna happen.
And there it goes. It's going down and it's going over towards Wildcard. And now the fight gonna break through. Ultimate's being used and now looking to try and back out. Another kill. Joey going after Spawn. Spawn gets decimated. Dragoon jumping in now. And suddenly there's new life in this squad of Wildcard. A double kill going over to TX. How in the world did they get through that?
They set up really, really heavily around the Baron. That was the big thing. I am surprised that they even opted for that on the side of Polar Ace. They knew that they had no priority into the river. They're walking in blind for the most part into the likes of a Vel'Koz and a Kalista who can turn so fast off of this when they also have very heavy priority on the Elder Drake. They have sidebane pressure. Let Renekton push up to the inhibitor tower, maybe even take the inhibitor tower. All you gotta do is stand back. Your whole base is pushed out. That's a nice pick.
Oh, trying to grab it there, but TX able to back up inside. There comes the damage. TX able to grab the kill. Now Dragon Mid Kim in no man's land gets gunned down. TX and Command Attack are leading this squad to victory against all adversity.
No, yeah, 4 deaths right now for TX because he's the primary target. But again, Command Attack has been sneaky good throughout the game, slowly picking up AP, slowly picking up this utility for his team to capitalize on. And the Elder Drake, he's the reason why this is such a big win condition. So much damage can come out of the Vel'Koz, even without massive amounts of AP, with that true damage spike from your passive, that you can capitalize on this execution so quickly in just about any fight, especially when they're clustered together. And that would be the ideal situation for a team like this one. You've got the you've got the Gragas, the Thresh, and the Renekton in the front line, and you've got a Syndra and Aphelios who can do more than enough damage in the back line that you want to look to teamfight if you're on the side of Polar Ace, but not when an Elder Drake is available here for Wildcard.
Now the itemization completely done at this point for TX, rounding it off with the Randuin's Omen on top of that, just looking to get that DPS and stay alive while dissing it out. It's something I've seen before, and with the combination of the Randuin's Omen and the Guardian Angel, I mean, you already have a decent amount of armor. I think it's like a really high base amount, something like 80 on the Kalista. With all of that, puts her like what I think it's almost exactly 200, like 210, something like that on the Kalista to be able to use, which is a ridiculous amount of damage prevention. Close right there, close. Boosie OC just barely able to get out of range for that ultimate that came out of Shorter Ace, and as well as the Ray going through. That's going to be some resources down. The Death Sentence going off into the mid lane. Spawn get a lot of damage off here. TX also on the retreat. No kills to go off just yet, but look at the flank. The regroup. It's going to be a 5-on-5 waiting for this team fight to come through. Keep in mind, the ultimate, the engage is down for Shorter Ace, but they're going to look to find a pick off onto Top Diff. Top Diff is not finding any of the carries on this back end. Dragoon trying to get into those last bits of damage, using a Juggernaut buff to get in the healing he needs. And suddenly Wildcard are finding picks once again. A 1-for-1 exchange, but Top Diff is fed to the wolves, stunned up and destroyed, but able to just barely dash out, but it's only prolonging the inevitable. TX goes in, grabs Boosie OC. He wants to grab Dragon Mid Kim as well. TX is popping off in this game. One more to take down. Only the support remains. Wildcard have turned this game around.
I think this might actually just be the game right here, right now. 40-second death timers, 25 on spawn. There's no team fight that comes through. You're not playing to the pressure that you could have with the Renekton in the solo lane up against Dragoon or to his TP whatsoever, or around neutral objectives in general. You're not playing to any of that if you're on the side of Polar Ace. Instead, they opt for a team fight where you get way too far with the Renekton, and Julian is just trying to make something happen, trying to stall this wave as long as he can. But it's not going to mean all that much. 20-second death timers, that's going to be the end of the game right there.
Only spawn going to respawn, but there's not really much he can do. There comes the engage, and spawn set straight back to that gray screen. Wildcard, they get the upset 2-0, defeating Polar Ace.
I also don't know what the call was in that final fight coming through from Polar Ace, because again, it was a really far dive from Renekton, and there was a lot of dead space that nobody occupied. That was the free lane for Joey to get thrown in by TX to get on top of Spawn. Once Spawn was dead, the team fight's essentially gone. BCOC didn't have the Rabadons yet, only had the 3 items on the Syndra, doesn't have the most AP to put out all the damage you need into a team that's quite tanky and quite distant in terms of where their damage is coming through in command attack. And because the damage went down under Spawn immediately, there's just nothing left outside of the Renekton to put some damage down. It was a really rough last fight. They played so heavily around top diff early in the game. They put so many resources into him, and then they weren't playing to the side lane Renekton. They were playing these team fights. They were playing too heavy into the 4-on-4s that you shouldn't be taking in the first place. I'm so baffled by Polar Ace's decision making in the last 5-10 minutes of that game.
I mean, we saw the stage they were in. They were making Wildcard Gaming dance to their tune, making them go back and forth between the top lane with top diff, kind of trying to siege an inhibitor, and over towards the Baron. After that, there was just a complete loss of control. I really thought this game did belong to Polar Ace, especially with, as you were saying earlier, the resources they poured into taking down Dragoon. But what we really kind of overlooked here was just how sneaky command attack can be when he finds his CC, and TX's ability to, well, itemize for getting his ass kicked and then bring it back at the late stage of the game.
TX, I don't know how it was that he got stomped so heavily in the early team fights and just it felt like he was completely unpressured in the late game team fights as all things had come through. It might have been that DMK and Julian just weren't willing to make those super aggressive plays into TX to take him out of the fight, because command attack was making all those plays happen that he needed to. The damage was there from the Vel'Koz to actually supplement the rest of the team, when usually you'd have to have your ADC there. I think there was plenty coming through from command attack to actually make up for it.
What an intense matchup between these two squads, but ultimately, Wildcard Gaming are able to take the 2-0 victory against the veteran organization of Polar Ace, and congratulations to them. That puts them at 1-1, tying them up with Polar Ace in week number 2.
It's a rough one. Again, I talked to Polar Ace. I feel like Build's game 1 and game 2 were well within reach of in terms of the game up against their opposition in Wildcard here. It was winnable both times. Game 1, it felt like execution. Game 2, it felt like decision making. And yeah, you can go back to the drawing board, but that's a tough loss to take. I know Polar Ace, you can at least take off the back of this one that you have a lot of things to work on, and it wasn't that far. You're not that far off of Wildcard. This easily could have been a 2-0 in the exact opposite direction with a few plays going a different way. So Polar Ace, just kind of recollect yourself, redetermine what it is that you want to play towards or you want to play for, and then operate under that kind of assumption. Because it seemed like that shifted halfway through this game, and they started just throwing fights.
Yeah, so that's going to do it here for the cast today. My name, Eric Desirexpotron, followed by Dean Rebel Fox American. Of course, a shout out to our streamer, Rando Joe. He is a legend. Thank you guys for joining us. Congratulations to Wildcard Gaming, and we will see you guys next time on Risen Esports Champions League.